All right, we'll call the meeting to order. If you join me, please, in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Amy, if you could call the roll, please.
Sure. Tom Siebold.
Here.
Jeff Johnson.
Here.
Edward Dawson is absent. Selena King is also absent. And Laura Gungeon.
Present.
Thank you. 3 is a quorum today. Thank you for being here, Tom. It's exciting. Thank you.
All right.
Go ahead, Tom.
We'll move on to the approval of the March 14th, 2023 meeting minutes.
So moved, Judson.
I will second that. Any discussion? No? Okay. All in favor, please say aye.
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 One abstention.
Thank you.
All right. I would also ask for a motion to designate the solicitor as the hearing officer for today.
I'll make that motion.
Okay.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
All right.
So now it comes over to me. We are here today to hear appeal number 12283 on behalf of Frank Ortiz Mercado. The first thing that I want to note is that due to circumstances beyond our control, we do not have a court reporter with us today. The hearing is being recorded, however, and we will make a transcription of that recording if everybody is okay with that. So on behalf of the city, Mr. Check, is that acceptable?
I guess, okay, who would make the transcription?
It'll be transcribed by a court reporting agency.
Okay, so you'll give it
Okay.
to a third party?
Yep,
Okay.
yeah, and the witness, I'll be swearing the witnesses in.
Okay.
Okay, everything will still be under oath. And Mr. Medina?
Yes, we're okay with that.
Okay, thank you, sir. With that, I'll take appearances.
Jason Check on behalf of the city?
Attorney Mario Medina for Frank Ortiz, please.
Okay. All right, Mr. Check, I believe that you are up to bat.
Thank you. On behalf of the city, I would call Miss Amy Francis.
Would you like me somewhere else other than my own seat?
I mean, it's perfectly fine.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
Amy, where is the recorder?
It is right by the mic, sorry,
Okay.
the speaker.
Very good, thank you.
Okay, Miss, could you state your name for the record?
Sure. It's Amy Francis,
And could you state your employer?
City of Erie,
And what is the address of your employer?
626 State Street, Erie, PA 16501.
And could you state what your job title is?
Zoning officer.
And could you just tell us, in summary formation, what does that, what
Actually-
are some of your job duties?
Jason, my apologies, I did not swear the witness in.
Oh,
My
sorry.
Okay. Amy, would you please raise your right hand? Do you swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you, Art. Could you state, just in summary form, tell us what your job duties entail as part of your position?
Sure. The main part of my job would be to review zoning applications that come in for building use, for permits, for changes of use to buildings, along with enforcing the zoning ordinance
And do you also handle any complaints from the public about various properties?
every day.
Okay. Now, are you familiar with Frank Ortiz?
I am.
And could you tell us when you first became familiar with him or his case, or why we have the appeal?
Yes. It was shortly after December 7th, I had visited the property and left a door hanger to have a conversation with Mr. Ortiz.
And did you talk to Mr. Ortiz at that time?
Not at that time, but he did come into the building probably a few days later. I don't have an exact date for you.
Did you talk to him in person?
Yes, right in the lobby here.
And could you summarize that conversation what his questions were or what your answers were?
Yes, his main question, or the main reason I was there was for a mobile home that was placed on the property, and we talked about how that couldn't be used to be lived in. It also couldn't be used for storage that I would know of. I would have to consult the building inspector, but I was pretty sure it did not qualify under our building code.
Okay, and did you wind up telling him that he was in violation of the code?
I told him that he would have to remove it, and then we do have to send an official letter.
Okay, so approximately, you said in December? Can you
Yes, it was in
approximate?
December I had visited
Yeah,
him.
can you approximate what date you would have had that conversation with him?
Within a week. He didn't take too long to call or come in. He came in timely, that I thought of.
Okay.
Wasn't a month or 2 months later. It was pretty timely.
Okay, and you're saying that conversation happened literally right out here?
Yes, that's correct.
So first floor of City Hall?
Correct.
Okay. And did you have any other contact with him between that date, before you sent out a letter?
No, I did not.
And what date did you send the letter?
I believe it was January 30th. May I look at my notes to double check that?
Was there
January
permission?
31st.
Yeah, I do have a microphone. Yeah. Am I too low? I have people always complain about that. Okay, I'll do this. Okay.
Yes, January 31st, 2023.
Okay. And do you have a copy of that with you?
I do.
Okay. And I have an exhibit here. So can you? Yes, I have. Yeah. So, can you verify that that is the letter you indeed sent?
Yes.
And it is addressed to Frank Ortiz at the top, is that correct?
That's correct.
And it does have your signature and your title down at the bottom.
That's correct.
Okay. With that, I'd like to enter that as City's Exhibit 1.
Okay. Any objection?
No, thank you very much.
Now, after you wound up sending this letter, what was the next phase of the case?
The owner of the property does have 30 days to file for an appeal, and Mr. Ortiz's attorney did file for appeal timely.
Okay. Now, hold on. Now, when you went back to your letter, you cite specifically in your letter that the area of the property, which the address of the property is 2123 Parade, correct?
That's correct.
You cite in your letter that it's a C4 commercial zoning.
Also correct.
Okay, now what is significant about C4 commercial zoning with relation to what the allegations are with the property?
In this case, my concern is it's a mobile home. Once mobile home, always a mobile home. We couldn't have anybody living there. You cannot have a mobile home not stored, or that is not stored in a mobile home park. C4 does not permit mobile home parks.
Okay, so are you saying that under no circumstances in the C4 district that a mobile home is permitted?
Correct.
Now.
As a
now-
single family dwelling, I want to make that clear.
Okay, so, and you did make that clear. Now, what about if the mobile home was being used for, say, storage, like a garage or a shed? Is that permitted?
Warehouse is not permitted in C4 either.
In what districts are warehouses permitted?
I believe it's M1, M2, and WCM for waterfront
Okay, and so,
manufacturing.
so for that purposes, is it fair to say that Mr. Ortiz, according to you, would not be allowed to use it for living and/or storage?
That is correct.
Could he just leave it there?
No.
Why couldn't he just leave the mobile home there, say for salvaging or scrapyard, just for parts?
Scrapyard is not a permitted use in C4 either.
And where would a scrapyard be available?
More in the manufacturing district.
So you're looking like an M2 district?
Correct.
Okay. So if Mr. Ortiz was trying to use it for, say, business purpose, to store someone's personal items for them on behalf of them, that would be a no.
That would be no.
Okay. And now, are there any structures? So your letter was for him to remove it within 30 days.
That's correct.
Am I correct in saying that it was appealed? What is the penalty for him not complying if there was to be a penalty?
Zoning violations are $500 a day per violation.
So do you have a quick, or do you have a computation available for the zoning board?
I did not do that, but if you'd let me use my calculator, I would be happy to calculate that for you real quick.
Okay. Look, if it
That'd
takes
be
a few
okay?
minutes.
Unless there's an objection, yes.
3 months, 90 days times 5. After 90 days, which is approximately where we're at $45,000.
Okay, $45,000, does that, maybe you know or you don't know, even though we filed a timely appeal, is that still permitted to keep running? Or is
I
that
mean-
stayed in any way?
I'm not sure that, well, depending on the hearing, I guess that's because he appealed it timely. He has to remove it within 30 days. Legal determination.
Okay.
What was it? It sounds like some answers are being shared.
Well, no, I mean, it's the legal determination that he was supposed to move it in 30 days. He filed the appeal within 30 days. So it depends on this hearing whether the fine sticks or what the violation actually is. My past experiences, the judges have always made that determination.
So under any circumstances, I would say is there any circumstance where this trailer, the mobile home, would be allowed to stay on the property?
Not that I know of.
And additionally, I think I almost used the word trailer. Is a trailer the same as a mobile home, or is that different?
I mean, the zoning code book does state house trailer, travel trailer, recreational vehicle, camper trailer, utility trailer, boat trailer as trailers. It also states mobile home. So anything with axles and wheels that's moving is what I interpreted as a trailer.
Okay, and everything you just listed, are those permitted in zoning C4?
I'm sorry, could you repeat?
Are everything you just listed with axles and wheels, essentially, are those permitted in C4?
Not that I know of. I mean, storage trailers would be for personal use. They wouldn't be used as part of a building, so to say. That's the hard part. This is a moving vehicle, but he wants to use it as a building.
Yeah.
So I'm having a hard time with that one.
Well, and what are the measurements of the mobile home?
I believe it was a 14 by 70. It appeared to be. I did not physically measure it myself. Just my past experience.
Yeah.
It looks
If you
approximate.
could use your calculator real quick, how much square footage is that?
Sure. $980 square feet.
So based on that estimate, would you say that that would be at the same level as a trailer or a boat or something else?
No, I think it's larger than a trailer. Utility trailer, something along those lines, those seem to be smaller.
Now, there is another structure on the property, correct?
That is correct.
And what is the address of this structure?
Its legal address is 2123 Parade. As I approach the property, I do see that there's been an address added of 410, which does not exist in zoning. 410 East 22nd it would have been.
One moment there. Now, according to you, 410 does not exist, correct?
That's correct.
And when did you notice that there was the address of 410?
Actually, I believe it was today. I realized that there was a 410 address on the door. I do have photos as I look back. The 410 was always there, but we knew it as the parcel number 1850-17-111, also known as 2123 Parade Street.
Okay, and do you have a picture of the property from, say, December when you first visited?
Yes.
Okay.
It's actually in my Bible. Yes, that would actually be November. Jake has up on the screen.
So can you identify that structure?
Yes. That is going to be the blue, approximately 980 square foot mobile home. Also on the property at that time would have been a private garage that does have a transmission sign on it, but no other business name, no phone number, nothing. When I was there, I also noted that there is some cars that are there, and we do have this only as a private garage on this use.
Okay. So just for some basics, this property is at the corner of Parade and East 22nd?
That is correct.
And what street view is this?
That is going to be from the East 22nd view. I am almost on the corner of Parade, but to stay safe, it's on East 22nd.
Okay, and would Parade Street be on the right or left? Of
Parade Street's going to be on the left.
Thank you. And so what we're talking about is the mobile home right in the middle of the picture.
That is correct.
Now, when you say that the garage that's there, that does have a transmission sign on it,
Does.
and that would indicate to you that there's a possibility of a business,
Could have been.
like an older business?
Yep.
What is that garage? If I owned that property and that garage was on there, what would be a legal use of that garage?
The only use we can allow for at this time is the private garage that it always was. This is a vacant piece of property with a private garage that did not get torn down after a fire.
Okay. And, right, and so I see a notice, so I'd like to enter the picture is City Exhibit 2, if I may, any objection?
No, thank you.
Now, this sketch here, what is this a sketch of?
That's a part of the zoning record that is in file. It does state that there was a former dwelling that was used for a business there. It was demolished in 1981, and it's an existing private garage on the far east side of the property.
Okay. And for this purpose here, you see some notation on the sketch that says whatever other building was on there was demolished, does it say?
That's correct.
So when was that demolished?
It looks like the fire was sometime in 80, according to what we had on record.
So, but that picture says 1981, is that correct?
In 1981, I'm sorry,
Okay,
yes.
so over 40 years ago.
Correct.
So there has been is there any significance for your purposes as an officer of the importance of having a private building, like a house or some other unit like that, along with the garage?
Well, it was used for accessory use at the time. So the primary business use was the home that appeared to be a group home for Vision Quest, way back when. It was destroyed by fire. At the time, the demo coordinator did not, if there was one, did not make them tear down the accessory use structure. Today, we would.
I understand that, but for our purposes, if someone owned the property before 1981 and they had the house and the garage, could they run a business out of that garage?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. If it was approved through the zoning hearing and it was an approved use, it could be an accessory business to that business.
But that would be with the main building?
Correct, absolutely. Yes,
So then
I'm
what
sorry.
happens to the business aspect of it if the building is demolished like we have in this case?
The main use is gone. Primary use is gone for the business.
So because that garage was an accessory use to the main building, once the main building is gone, they lose that accessory use. Is that what you're saying?
That's what I do believe has happened through the records based on what they did back then. They called it private garage, no other permissions.
So it's fair to say in 1981, the garage lost private use.
Correct.
Okay. Now, can we go to, let me see here. Let's go to more, can we go to this picture here?
What's the date on your picture?
December 7th?
Okay.
Okay. Now, December 7th, did you take this picture?
I did.
And will you note an address on the door or a series of numbers on the door?
I see it. As like I said, I saw it today more than I saw it. I work in parcel numbers for the most part, not necessarily addresses.
Okay, but the 410 denoting probably an address is in this picture dating.
It is, correct.
And to your knowledge, is 410 a legal address?
Not from zoning. And
So-
when I say not legal, that means it hasn't gone to 911. It hasn't been noted with the county assessment office. We do use the three of us together to legalize an address for safety purposes.
So as far as you know, 410 East 22nd Street does not exist?
That's correct.
The only proper address for this parcel is 2123 Parade?
That is correct.
Mr. Check,
Yes.
are you going to be entering either the prior schematic or that photo as exhibits?
Yes, I would like to. Thank you for asking.
Okay, so.
I thought
the-
maybe we could do instead of doing one by one, maybe do a group of like City Exhibit 3.
Okay, we could probably do that. I just want to check though, because I don't think that this particular photo is something that was in the packet that went out for this meeting.
Okay.
So if you would, you should probably publish that to opposing counsel and then also to the board. Do you have another copy of that?
There are 7 copies for anybody who does need them at the time we
Okay.
need them.
Oh, and just as a housekeeping note, were these pictures from the 10th? Are those available?
Yes, some of those are from yesterday and this morning.
Okay.
If you're, I can dish out. Yeah, they're all separated for you.
Just in packets?
Yes, every other way.
Here, so you can publish them as you go to opposing counsel.
Okay, thank you.
I'll distribute up here. Okay, you may continue.
Okay, thank you, Attorney Martinucci. Now, so when we're talking about, and obviously we're here on an appeal from the code violation of the house, the mobile home, correct?
Correct.
Now, I've been asking you a series of questions about the other structure. And is that because there are concerns about how that structure is being used?
That is correct.
Now, everything I've brought up so far, to your knowledge, has Mr. Ortiz filed for a variance or some other use of the property?
I have not seen an application for occupancy or change of use. I have not seen a building permit. I have not seen anything from Mr. Ortiz since the day we were in the lobby.
Okay, and that was back in mid-December?
Mid-December, and then the attorney for when he filed the paperwork.
Okay, and you never, other than the letter from Attorney Medina, you've never had a conversation with Attorney Medina specifically?
No, just the day he dropped off the application.
Okay, now, I'm going to bring up, this is a picture from April 10th, so yesterday, right here.
That's correct.
So the pictures, do you have the pictures available from yesterday?
I do.
And can you tell us, okay, there it is.
Yep.
What is the significance of this picture?
The significance is that it does now have a keep out sign posted. It is not for auto repair use, and the building inspector has posted it unoccupiable at this time.
So who posted the actual keep out sign?
Scott Heitzenreiter, our building inspector.
And you took this picture though, correct?
Scott actually took that picture and
Okay.
sent it to me, yes.
Okay. And on April 11th, so also today, can we go to the next picture? What is this a picture of?
That's a sign that has covered up the keep out sign that says no public bathrooms.
And when you compare both pictures, what happened?
Well, it literally looks like a keep out sticker went away and that there's no public bathrooms there.
And you don't know, you're just reporting what you have seen.
I am reporting what I have seen. There is a sign on the building today and yesterday. There was a sign a week ago when I posted it for public notice. The business name has gone up on the building. That's Frank Ortiz Auto Repair.
And again, has Mr. Ortiz applied for some sort of paperwork or documentation to run a business out of the garage?
Not one.
And do you have any knowledge of a previous owner of the property running a car repair business?
Once I started to prepare for the hearing, for the appeal, I did find that there was another business that tried to be the transmission shop. But there was a zoning officer in 2020 prior to me that sent a notice of violation letter as well. The business doors were shut. The property was sold to Mr. Ortiz.
And is this the letter you're referencing, April 27th of 2020?
That is correct.
And that would have been sent to the previous owners at 2123 Parade?
Correct. The Randazzos, I believe.
And what was the ultimate conclusion to the previous owners? You said it was the Randazzos?
Yes.
What did the Randazzos end up doing?
They looked, it appeared that it was being leased out to another entity, another gentleman, and we don't have record of that name. But it does show that it was closed up in some of my photos from Google Street View.
And so that problem essentially was resolved when the business closed?
That is compliance. That is what, they did have the 30 days to appeal as well. They chose to comply instead of appealing.
Okay. Neither here nor there, the individuals, either the Randazzos or the person that leased the property, according to your records, never filed for a variance or some other use of the property?
Not for the auto repair, no.
So even with the past owners, that garage, the only conforming use was as a personal garage?
Personal private garage, no business use.
Okay. I think with that, I don't have any other questions for you, I don't believe.
Okay.
I would like to move the exhibits.
So
as
let's-
packets. It is Exhibit 3.
So let's, tell me what you want to include in Exhibit 3, just the photographs?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So the photograph from April 11th. There's a photograph from April 10th. There's another photograph from December 7th. And I believe there is the sketch drawing from the old records. And then, Jake, if you could go back, let's see if I missed one. And I want to say that was entered as B, correct?
2.
Oh, 2, I'm sorry.
That
It's okay.
was 2.
So the photographs that you're asking be admitted as Exhibit 3, I have here, looking at the ones you've talked about, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 photographs, one dated 12/7/2022 with a keep out sign, another one December 7th, 2022, kind of a broader view, 12/7/2022 left door hanger. 4/10/2023 with the keep out sign posted. 4/11/2023 with the no public restroom sign where the keep out sign was.
Correct.
Okay. Are those the 5 photographs that you want in for City's Exhibit 3?
Yes.
Okay. Council, any objections?
No, thank you.
Okay. So those are admitted, 2 is admitted. Then you also had the schematic that you had referenced previously. That was, let's say, this sketch.
Yes.
Okay. So you want to do this as City Exhibit 4?
Yeah, we'll do that separately, yes.
Okay. Okay. There was also a reference to the letter that had been sent to the Randazzos on April 27th, 2020. That's not on letterhead or anything, but do you want that as an exhibit as well?
Yeah, we do a city exhibit 6, I guess, is that?
That would be 6. Council, any objections?
No, thank you.
Okay. Make sure 4, actually, that's City 5.
My apologies.
City 5. Okay. Those, without objection, are admitted. Counsel, your witness.
Yes, thank you.
Hello.
In the January 31st letter to my client that you signed off on, there's a reference to both a C4 commercial zoning district and an R district, which appeared to be a little confusing to my client. Can you explain why there's the references to 2 districts on the letter?
I cannot, that's actually part of this, that's right out of the zoning ordinance. It's how it was written and adopted.
And the zoning ordinance that you're alleging my client violated is this one that's listed on this correspondence, right?
The ordinance itself, the 2005-80, I believe is the number.
Well, what's the difference between that and what you've cited here, 205.21?
That's a code in the ordinance,
Okay?
a section.
So is that what you're alleging my client's violated?
Yes,
And that, you would put that on here because this is his notice of the violation,
That's
right?
correct.
So that would make sense, so what he's alleged to
Yes.
violated is on here, right?
correct.
All right. So then focusing on, and you're responsible for authoring this letter? Is that right?
Correct, I'm enforcement.
Okay, yeah, but you wrote this letter also, correct?
We actually have a lot of letters already completed that we work in and work with properties on. Depending on what they are, they're all different.
The line in here that references the trailer may not be used as a storage shed trailer as previously requested, at the bottom of, I guess, kind of the second full paragraph, is that in response to a discussion that you had with my client?
That's correct. That was the lobby discussion that we did have, that I would check into that.
Okay. And in addition, it sounds like in that conversation you discussed these other couple of elements here, that no one could live there and that it had to be at least 3 feet from the property, correct?
That's correct. That is stated in an R district, though. We are in a C district.
I'm sorry?
That is stated with the R district. We are in the C district at this time.
Well, that was my question, so why is that on this letter?
That's exactly how the code is in the ordinance.
Well, so is there any discrepancy between what I just asked you and what applies in this case?
Yeah, the mobile home isn't allowed to be put without a mobile home park. Mobile home parks are not permitted uses in C4.
What connection does that have to the use of the mobile home? There was some discussion about whether or not someone lived in it. So if someone's not living in it, it's not being used for residential purposes, right?
I can't determine that. It was put on the property without permit. It wouldn't have been approved as is.
Do you know if you or anybody from your office ever tried to access the trailer to look to see what its use was?
I did go to the property. This mobile home had also been on another property located over on East Ave that has a funny address, so it's 21st and East Ave area. It was sitting on another property where there were people occupying it illegally. It wasn't hooked to utilities. It doesn't meet building code over there. Our demo coordinator was in the process of getting it removed, and we were in the process of taking that property by eminent domain for code violations and blight.
And I assume all that was discussed with my client when he came in and talked to you, right?
I did not, that is not for discussion. That wasn't my case.
Well, but now you're asking the members here to consider the fact that it was on another property, right? That's why you just
Oh,
mentioned it.
I was asked if it was somewhere else.
Well, so it was used for, I guess arguably, without further evidence, it was used for residential purposes at the other property, and that led you to assume that it was being used for residential purposes?
It was not
purposes here?
legally being used for a residential. It was illegally placed there without a permit as well, and people just went in and stayed in there.
What evidence do you have that that was occurring at 2123 Parade Street?
I don't have any evidence. That's why I stickered it before it could happen.
And then when you talked about it with my client, he told you that people were or were not going to live there?
He told me he was going to use it for storage for tires.
So that would be, so the answer to the question would be, he told you people were not going to live there, correct?
He told me that it was going to be used for storage for tires.
So that nobody was going to live there, right?
He didn't say those words, but that he told me it was for storage.
You didn't think it was your job to ask him if it was going to be used for residential purposes at that point?
It's a mobile home, and it is not permitted in our C4 district.
Well, and that does or does not depend on whether people are living in it?
I don't believe that should matter. It's a mobile home. It's used for residential purposes in everyday world.
But you have no evidence that it's being used for residential purposes here, right?
I don't, and it didn't have a permit.
And your testimony a moment ago was once a mobile home, always a mobile home, right?
That's correct.
So even though you know, all right. There's, so you mentioned that when you spoke with my client about its proposed use for storage, what was your understanding of the nature of the storage it was going to be used for?
He wanted to store tires in it.
And have you been able to inspect on whether tires are actually in there?
No.
So tires would be impermissible storage, right?
Warehouse would be an impermissible use.
That sounds like a technical word. Can you explain what warehouse means?
Warehouse is a storage, a use in our zoning ordinance.
And does that apply to storing certain types or sizes of items? Like, let's say there's a bunch of paper towels in there. Would that constitute warehouse?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. So not just tires, but ordinary household items.
Sure.
All right. And then there was a question, I think, from the solicitor regarding storing personal items for another. Does that bear any relevance in here?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that? That
Yeah, I
sounded a
think you
little
were
different.
I think you were asked a few moments ago when you were talking about warehousing and storing items. There was a reference to it being impermissible to store personal items for another. You recall that?
No?
Okay. So but would it be fair to say that storing personal items for another person would be impermissible storage? Is that accurate?
Well, it depends on what the business use is. If it's storage, I mean, you could store for any purposes, I guess. I don't understand what you mean.
Well, I mean, I don't know, it's kind of, just through the course of your office, I'm not sure, I guess I'm asking for clarification. So, warehouse, not permitted in C4, and warehouse includes, your understanding, based on your training experience, is warehouse is any item being stored in the structure. Is that how broad that
There's a
term is?
definition for it if you'd like, we could
Sure.
read it if that
Yeah,
would
can you
help.
help?
I'm sorry, I'm misunderstanding what you're saying. May I use the book to pull the exact definition?
Well, if the attorney's asking you to read the
Okay.
definition from the code, then yes.
Okay, thank you. Warehouse is a building designed for storage of personal or commercial goods and materials.
Okay. And that's not permitted in C4, correct?
That is correct.
I'm sorry, was the wording created for or used for in there?
It is designed for.
Designed for, okay. So you had a conversation with my client, and you said at that point in time that you needed to check with some other individual on whether the storage use was permitted. Accurate?
If the building could be used for storage is what it was.
And then the next communication you had with my client was this January 31st correspondence, correct?
That is correct.
So this was his first notification that it couldn't be used for storage?
Other than the notification when we talked.
Well, that's when you said you would
Yes,
check with
correct.
another
I'm sorry.
individual.
Yes, you're correct.
So at that point, you didn't have an answer to that question?
I did
you?
not.
No, so the first time he got an answer to that question was in this letter alleging that he
Correct.
violated the ordinance. And on this letter, again, we're referencing C4 Commercial District, R District, all in the same letter, correct?
Well, from the code book, yes.
Okay. And it mentions, at no time shall any item listed above be used as living quarters except in properly zoned mobile home parks. Again, no evidence that it was being used as living quarters. Is that accurate?
That's correct.
Okay. Any issue with whether it's stored 3 feet from the property line? 'Cause that's
I
mentioned
did not
here.
measure the property line at this time.
Okay. Even after you sent this letter, you just kind of threw the language and didn't measure?
It's the use that I was working with, not the dimensional.
Okay. Okay. All right. So we know that wasn't a violation.
I don't know that.
Well, you were out there a few times, it sounds like, maybe as recently as today. Is that accurate?
Yes, that's correct.
Did you see that the trailer appeared to be 3 feet from the property line?
I did not measure it. Again, this is a use that I was worried about, not dimensional.
But that is listed on the correspondence, right? The 3 feet from the property line?
That's in the code book, correct?
You use the phrase legal address for 410 East 22nd Street, but, and you're using the word legal address, legal description, and you referenced building permits, but are you aware that 410 East 22nd Street is a postal mailing address?
It's not approved by zoning.
But in answer to the question, are you aware that it's a postal mailing
I
address?
am not.
Okay. And it sounds like you looked a little bit in preparation for this hearing about the business that was there previously, correct?
It's part of the zoning file.
So were you able to identify whether that business was located at 2123 Parade Street or 410 East 22nd Street?
It is the same parcel with two addresses, one being legal, one being not legal.
In your experience, how would it have gotten that second address?
Not quite sure.
Okay.
It would have to go through zoning to get a legal mailing address now, get put on the assessment record, and also be a legal address in 911 and part of all of their safety issues.
But whatever it was that got this property the 410 East 22nd Street address, it sounds like it's clear and there's no question that that was done before my client took possession of the property.
That is also correct.
And as a matter of fact, the letter that we showed on the screen to the Randazzos, did that come up in your conversation with my client?
No,
No.
it did not. It was
Did
part
you-
of the file that I pulled.
Did you mention that discussion generally to my client, that the previous place had applied and been denied?
I did not know that until the appeal was turned in.
So you didn't look into all this stuff before you sent my client this correspondence?
I did not.
Okay. Did my client indicate in any conversation to you that he knew that the previous owners had been denied use of that property for auto repair? Did he-
No, I have no knowledge of that.
And there probably is a little bit of a language barrier. You can tell his first language is Spanish, correct?
Correct.
You feel like you were able to manage the conversations
Yes.
relatively easily? Okay. Based on your investigation, though, and based on the photos, it looks like there was some signage and other evidence that an auto repair business of some sort was operating at 410 East 22nd Street, correct?
It appeared to be.
That sign referenced something about transmission, right?
That was a transmission sign, correct, from the previous owners.
Do you have any idea, based on your preparation for this hearing or investigation, how long they were in operation in that way before receiving this letter?
Yeah, I did a little bit of digging on Google, and on the Street View. It has been there since, I believe, '08. It was still vacant. By 2012's imagery, there was pop machines and auto repair going on in the driveway as well as in the building, it appears. That's the '08 photo.
Did this whole issue come to your office's attention because there was a concern that people were living in the trailer?
There was a call that there was a mobile home on the corner of 22nd and Parade.
And then when was the first time someone from your office visited the property?
November 16th, 2022.
Do you know if that person investigated, in fact, whether there were people living there?
Oh, that was me. I'm sorry. I am fairly new, so the previous zoning officer is no longer here.
Okay.
It wasn't there at that time, so we got the call sometime late fall. I usually go out within a day or two of a call to try to make sure I get eyes on it to see what's going on.
So when you arrived at the property, what did you find out was going on with regard to people residing there?
I just took a picture of a mobile home that didn't have a permit to be placed there.
Oh, okay. What, did you not ask to access the trailer because of the language barrier, or what was the issue?
There was nobody there. I left a door hanger the first time. The first time I got out of my vehicle and it went up to the door was December 7th, and I left a door hanger that day.
Well, it sounds like then at some point afterward, you had a conversation with my client about the use of the mobile home. Accurate?
Yes,
Okay. And at that point, you're discussing the use of the mobile home, and he tells you, no one's living there, but I may need to use it for storage. Is that fair?
that is correct.
Following that conversation, or in that conversation, you say, I've got to check on that storage question.
I've got to check to see if it'll comply with building code.
And
Yes,
it sounds like you must have taken his word for the fact that no one was living there because you didn't follow up with any investigation on that.
correct. I
Okay,
still
so-
can't have the mobile home in our C4.
So there's no dispute before this board that no one was residing in that
Correct.
mobile home?
I don't
Okay.
have any problem with that.
So in that case, what we're really honing in on is this storage shed/trailer request, which once again my client was first notified of in this correspondence, right?
That's correct.
Okay. This, the keep out sign on the, I'll call it 410 East 22nd Street, the keep out sign that was placed on the door there was placed after this appeal was filed, correct?
On 410, yes, that was on Monday.
Yes, yesterday?
Correct.
Would you say that this appeal kind of drew your attention to the property a little bit more?
Oh, absolutely. When I stated, when I went to post the property for public notice on the property, I noticed that there is now an auto repair sign up. There is a porta potty next to the building. And I contacted the building inspector and the plumbing inspector, as that is their area of expertise.
And did any of those individuals at any point in this process have a conversation with my client about the auto shop, the previous user wasn't doing it properly? Do you know if any of those people had conversations with my client about that?
I do not know that.
So we don't know if he's been explained that issue.
I do not know that either.
In preparation for the case, were you able to collect or gather any evidence that that conversation took place with my client?
I did not. They did not know about it until last Tuesday when I posted the property.
Did you have a communication with them about the property and about all these issues?
I just called them and let them know, hey, it looks like there's an auto repair business now in. That would have been the change of use, and as well as a porta-john that indicates that there's no water or plumbing on the property.
That conversation happened when?
That was last Tuesday, I had talked to the building inspector and plumbing inspector. Tuesday, Wednesday, I apologize.
And by that time, you'd already done your preparation for this hearing and found that letter to the Randazzos, right?
That's correct.
Okay, and you didn't think it was appropriate to maybe mention to your people, hey, talk to him that the previous owner was
It's
using...
not my, that's not my position. He would have to go through and get a certificate of occupancy from our building inspector and to be able to be open as auto repair.
Do you feel like the process is better served by having a conversation, talking with someone about what the process is whose first language is not English, rather than just posting keep out notices and having no conversation?
I guess that this is my job to enforce the zoning ordinance.
Well,
And
in
when
the
people don't get permits or occupancy permits, we can't have those conversations.
Well, let
We
me
get
ask
phone
you-
calls.
Let me ask, is that a uniform policy of yours that you just place the keep out sign before having a
Absolutely
conversation
not.
with the property owner?
Absolutely not. In fact, you know, I put a door hanger with my card on there first before I put anything else on any property. I had the conversation with him first.
About 410 East 22nd Street?
It's in a previous picture. There's a door hanger on there from December 7th, which would have been one of your exhibits. My door hanger with my business card is sitting right there.
But now I'm confused. Was that the conversation regarding the mobile home or the use of 410?
That's mobile home. You have to understand, that's the one property. 2 addresses doesn't mean it's 2 parcels. 1 parcel, 2 addresses. That's where we're at. One of them being legal, one of them not being legal.
And so again, you never talked to him about the use of 410? You never had a conversation with him about that, did you?
The use just changed as of last Tuesday, when I was there. There was no auto repair sign up.
Had you any familiarity with that property or that area prior to my client filing this appeal or the investigation you did?
I worked the entire city boundary.
Oh, good. Then you might be aware of the property around the corner that has a trailer sitting in their backyard?
Which one?
Are there multiple?
There's a couple, we're working on them. There's a couple out there. This is the same procedure for every one of them.
What's the timeline for those other comparable violations?
I'm not sure.
I'm saying objection, it's an ongoing investigation on their part.
I would sustain that.
I apologize if I touched on any privileged information. I wasn't trying to. All right. But your practice is typically to walk around and talk to the property owners about their non-conforming use?
If I get a call on them.
Only if you get a call, not if you personally observe them?
If I observe them as well, sure, I have to enforce the zoning ordinance. That is my job.
We talk about warehousing a little bit. Does your office treat the situations differently where there's a structure, whether it's a mobile home, garage, being used for quote-unquote warehouse purposes, and sort of, you know, dilapidated cars, tires? Is that not warehousing, just so I'm clear? They're like sitting in the yard. Is that warehousing?
Sorry, are you talking about a storage building for those
No, I'm just talking about like in
things?
the back of a house. They have.
Sounds like a property maintenance issue.
Okay.
Sounds like code violations.
Storage. Okay,
Right.
that's a different issue. Were you ever able, in your investigation of this or your experience with the area, able to notice to what extent my client actually cleaned up that property and parcel?
I did not.
Okay. That's all I have for now. Thank you.
Anyone on the board have any questions for Ms. Francis? No. Do you need a point of personal privilege?
Amy, when you talked with Mr. Ortiz, can you tell us a little bit more about the conversation? Did he
Sure.
have questions for you? Were you doing the most of the talking?
Yeah, I probably did most of the talking. I know that we talked about, he didn't know, he said, I'm here, I got your card. And I said, okay, well, that's because there's a mobile home on the property that can't be there. We don't have a permit for it to be placed on there. It wouldn't have been granted a permit. It wouldn't have passed anything for building inspection, zoning, as you can see. it wouldn't have gotten through all of the standard procedures we do have in place. So he had mentioned, well, I'd like to use it for storage for my tires. I'm thinking about doing a detailing business. And I said, well, I would have to check on that with the building inspector. I am not a building inspector. I don't know UCC code inside and out, and I am not certified as well. So that is when I spoke to Andy Zimmerman and Scott Heisenreiter, and they didn't feel that there was any way that could meet the code at the time. So I added in to the letter, cannot be used as storage. I wanted it to be clear.
Have you spoken with anyone else other than Mr. Ortiz relative to the property that would be,
No, just
Okay.
his attorney when he
Just
came
his
in to
attorney.
file the appeal.
okay.
So is there a process Mr. Ortiz could use to make the accessory structure a conforming use or and could you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, there's a couple things that would have to happen to make that building to comply. One, it would have to be brought to the 2018 UCC construction code. I don't know how that would happen. It is designed to be a mobile home. The other part of this is there's a use problem with the property at this point. We now have another violation, as auto repair is not permitted use in C4 either. He would have to come see a zoning hearing board to get an approved use as well. So one violation turned into another violation.
Like, so
I have
get-
not, oh, sorry, Tom.
Oh, if
I
you're
was
not
just going to
finished-
say, I have not sent a letter at that time because it just happened.
Okay. I guess my, part of that question too is there a way to make the garage structure into a conforming use?
That would be great questions for the building inspector. It's going to be based on what the actual use is. Do they have to have lifts? Do they have to have drains? Do they have to have public restrooms? ADA compliance? You're talking 2018 construction code.
True.
It's not a private garage that can just be flipped easily. Let's put it that way.
Thanks.
One more question. You had mentioned in your testimony, you didn't use the word template, but I assumed that's what you meant relative
Yes,
to your
that's-
letters. So when you have a specific violation, it fits into a template that you have?
That is correct.
Okay.
We have to tailor them a little bit because, as I said, everyone can be a little bit different. We can have multiple violations. Sometimes a mobile home being placed on a vacant piece of property in the city is just not normal. We don't have that every day.
Sure, okay, thanks.
I did have one more question. So the $500 a day fine, how does that work? Does that start day of notice of violation, or does that start after the 30 days, or how is that usually applied?
It's probably a good legal question, like I said, and I would refer you guys to the solicitors on that one. The only other ones that I've had that have been to court, the judge made the decision. So even if we went for $12,000 because we hit that number, the judge ordered $1,200. So really, my number is my number because that's where the MPC comes in, right?
Okay, and then you calculated from day of notice?
Correct.
Okay.
Mr. Check, do you have any redirect?
I think just very briefly
Okay.
I mean, Ms. Francis, I'll just be very quick. We're talking about Cities Exhibit 1 quite a bit today. Is it fair to say in the very first paragraph, you do state, you say specifically the C4 Commercial Zoning District?
That is correct.
And why did you put that in one paragraph by itself?
That's our standard
Okay.
template. We change the district based on where it's at.
Okay, but so that's letting him know that's the kind of district that he is in.
Oh, absolutely. I'm so sorry. Yes, he is in the C4 zoning
Okay.
district.
Now, your second, I will say the second full paragraph, it looks like you're quoting ordinance, or zoning ordinance 205.21, correct?
That is
I
correct.
do see a little chicken scratch, whatever you call that, on one section, and then it ends after mobile home parks, correct?
That is correct.
So that section that's been quoted is what lists our district in the middle of that, correct?
That is correct.
So by you saying that, you were trying to let him know that the mobile home, which is what's on the property, is not permitted in a C4 commercial zone.
Correct.
And then you let him know he has 30 days to comply, and that it's not good for storage, correct?
That is correct.
Now, is it fair to say that a mobile home is not designed specifically for storage?
That's correct.
So if he wanted to build a warehouse on this particular parcel, would he be permitted to build a warehouse, which would be the primary use?
Warehouse is not a permitted use in C4 either.
Okay, so whether it's storage inside a mobile home or a newly constructed warehouse, not permitted.
Not permitted use.
And the only zones that are permitted for, say, warehousing or storage would be the M1 district, M2 district, and then there's like a waterfront district, correct?
Waterfront manufacturing, I believe is at the end of that one. Yes, that is correct.
Now, my other question then is, and I believe Attorney Medina did ask you about other properties in the neighborhood, correct?
Yes, correct.
And you are working on those, and I'm not going to ask you to answer anything further than that.
Correct.
Now, would Mr. Ortiz be permitted to have, like, say there was vehicles that got moved there, or if he just left the mobile home there, would he be permitted to leave the mobile home there just as like it's part of his property, it's in his yard?
No. No, I don't believe so.
Because you're not allowed to have scrap in your yards, right, per the ordinance? And he wouldn't be allowed to run a salvage business, correct?
Not in C4.
Again, not in C4. So really, the zoning area is what's kind of driving your decision-making.
My decision on what the use of the property is at this time.
And, okay, now, you did have a face-to-face conversation with Mr. Ortiz, and we said mid-December.
Correct.
Since mid-December, there's been a lot of questions on whether you reached out to Mr. Ortiz, correct? Did he ever reach out to you?
No,
And he did have your contact information.
he did.
And did you tell him when you chatted with him something along the lines like, you can call me if you have any questions?
I always give my card
So, and is it accurate that you're open to conversations?
every time.
Okay,
I'd rather talk to people than go through this.
okay. And secondarily, so you sent your letter on Cities Exhibit 1 on January 31st.
Correct?
Did you get a call or a visit from Mr. Ortiz since January 31st?
No, I did not.
But we did get the appeal letter from
The
his
appeal on the
attorney,
last day of the notice.
from Attorney Medina.
Correct.
So other than the conversation where maybe he dropped off the paperwork for that, did Attorney Medina contact you or you to get this resolved as well?
I have not heard anything from him.
So it sounds like from both sides, letting things roll. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. I don't have any other questions. Then.
Okay.
Thanks.
Mr. Medina, any recross?
Yes, please, just on a point that was touched on a moment ago, because I think we covered that these conversations with my client left off on the note that you were going to check as to the storage use, right?
Correct.
And did you reach out to him prior to January 31st to answer that question?
I sent it by letter, so it was documented.
Right. So it would be fair, in fact, notwithstanding the questions just now, it would be fair to say that my client was waiting for your answer as to the storage use.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Amy, you're finished testifying. Mr. Check, any other witnesses for the city? Sorry, what was that? Okay. And if you would first, yeah, thank you, raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
Do I have him go up there? Or?
No, he can testify from right there, that's fine, as long as you don't mind sharing the mic.
That's okay.
Okay?
Because I have a notoriously low voice.
Yeah.
And so, not that I want the microphone, but sometimes it helps. Okay.
Andy, why don't you start by stating your full name?
Yeah.
You got it? Okay.
Yeah, that's okay. I would appreciate it. It makes it, my situation easier. I've had multiple court reporters tell me I speak too low.
Andrew Zimmerman,
And could you state your title for the city?
Manager of Code Enforcement.
And do you work for what
City of
department? City of Erie. And how long have you worked for the City of Erie?
26 years approximately.
And how long have you been the director?
17 years.
And does part of your job duties involve building inspections and knowledge of that stuff?
Yes,
And there was a question about the mobile home on 2123 Parade. Are you familiar with it?
yes.
Now, we're focusing more on the storage aspect of it, but there's also been questions about the whether people can live in it. Can you tell us, in your experience, whether this mobile home can be used properly either for living or for storage?
This trailer has a history with our office. It originally was up on 25th Street. And they wanted to use it as a single-family dwelling, and we told them that they couldn't. So then I believe it was sold to Mr. Ortiz, and then it ended up on 21st Street. And so, in order for a modular home to be used as a single-family dwelling, a used modular home, it has to be recertified. And what I mean by that is an agency will come in, they'll inspect it to make sure that all of the, that it hasn't been modified in any way whatsoever. And if it has, then they have to restore it back to original. And so that's very difficult on the age of that trailer. And you also would need a foundation underneath that. You would need a building permit. You would need plan approval from BIU and for the foundation. Now for the storage, that's a whole different ballgame. That was not designed for storage. It was designed as a single-family dwelling. And so you would have to hire a structural engineer and an architect to go through and review that trailer to make sure that the intended use of that trailer, that structure will withstand any new loads or whatever use it's going to be. So you're looking at that. Then the plans would go to BIU for review, and then they would approve, foundation, all the above to get the building permit, electrical, plumbing. But one of the structures on the property, either that structure or the original accessory building, would have to have a bathroom.
Does that include if it's redesigned for storage?
That's correct. You have to have, there has to be a bathroom provided.
So is it fair to state that whether it gets modified or recertified, the process for it to be either a living space or storage space, you would need to insert a bathroom and a foundation?
Yeah, residentially, yes. Commercial, it's a lot more difficult for what they would want to do, use that for a warehouse. For what you would have to do to retrofit that structure, it's just not worth the investment.
And how many, you're talking about a multi-step process with inspections,
Yes, many.
architects,
Many steps.
variances, permits, everything?
Not so much variance, well, you could be looking at an appeal, but your structural engineer and your architect, when they go to look at the structure, are gonna tell me, you're better off to build new.
Okay,
My opinion, but
right,
that's what they're gonna tell them.
okay. Do you have a ballpark figure of what it would cost to retrofit that?
I do not.
Would it be more than $10,000?
That will probably cover your architect and your structural engineer.
So we're talking quite a substantial cost to turn it into living space.
Yeah.
And then would it be the similar kind of fees and costs to turn it into storage space?
Oh, yeah, then you gotta put your building permits, all the upgrades to the structure to withstand the new use.
and we're discussing all these things, but we're also not even considering that it's a C4 zoning district, correct?
Well, the building code doesn't really care what the zoning code says. It's apples and oranges.
Okay.
They would have to either meet the residential code or the building code.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Zimmerman. I don't have any other questions.
Mr. Zimmerman, you haven't had any conversations with my client about these details you just mentioned, have you?
No.
There was some discussion in your testimony there about storage. My notes are kind of messy. Storage must have a bathroom. Okay. So storage, and we're talking about not just mobile homes being used as storage, but I guess other structures fall under that category. Accurate?
Well, you have to have a bathroom. The accessory structure that they're using now that as a garage, I guess, a transmission. I'm not too familiar with what they're using it now, but there has to be a bathroom. You have to provide a place for customers, employees, yourself to go to the bathroom. So whether it is in that building or if it's in the trailer, somewhere there has to be a bathroom to be provided for someone to use the facility.
So that's more connected to not just the use of the mobile home. I mean, what you're describing implies that the two structures are operating together, right? Because you've got bathroom
Correct.
for this business.
Correct.
Right.
Now, let's just say that trailer went away and you had your building sitting there.
If I can interrupt you, let's say the business went away. What's the situation then?
And so then that trailer, if you're going to use it as a business, would have to have a bathroom. Or if you're going to use it for storage, you still have to have a bathroom on that property.
Now, is there some limitation on that role? Say, for example, someone goes out and buys one of these pre-made sheds out in Edinburgh Road or something. You have to have a bathroom in that?
Yes,
Really?
yes.
Even if it's just on the parcel of a private residence?
If it's now, are you adding that as a residential, say an apartment or tiny house? If
No.
you're just putting that.
Not residential, it's
if
just
you're-
storage. What the
Let's
question
just
is-
say your client's property it's vacant, there's nothing on it, and you want to build a tiny house, and you go out and grab one of the sheds, throw a foundation underneath it, run plumbing, electric to it.
I don't think that's close enough to this analogy here. So it's not a tiny house situation because nobody's residing there. There's no evidence anybody's residing there. So this is just a mobile home, may or may not be being used in conjunction. I mean, there's really no evidence it's being used in connection with the business, so it's just a mobile home there. Now, when we add to that the factor of it being used for storage, my question is, if it's not connected to a business and it's not connected to a residence, does it still have to have a bathroom?
Technically, it does not exist, and nor can anyone use it. It's just sitting there, doing nothing. We don't recognize it. Now, the property maintenance code is going to recognize it in the zoning code, and they're going to tell you, you got to do something. But until a certificate of occupancy is issued for that structure, then we see it. Then it goes to property maintenance.
And a certificate of occupancy would mean that what uses are being applied for?
That's up to the owner.
Right, but if they're asking for a certificate of occupancy, I imagine that covers certain uses, right? They're not going to apply for a certificate of occupancy unless they plan on.
You pick your use, and that's what you go with. I'm not going to, unless you could have multiple uses, but you have to have a primary use. Residential, or do you have a shed on your property? That could be a utility use, and you also have your residential use. But your primary use is your residential.
Unless nobody's living there.
No, because it does not, that trailer does not exist yet. Because you need to tell me what it's going to be first. You're going to come in, if you can get through zoning, then you're going to tell me what it's going to be used for. If it's going to be a storage shed, if it's going to be a residential single-family dwelling, you need to tell me that. I'm not going to tell you what it's going to be. You're going to tell me.
You know what, I think I'm drawing a blank. What's your office's connection to this case?
I manage the code enforcement office. Zoning is under my umbrella, but I don't go down that road. I have 2 zoning officers that do that. I do not. They don't step in my world. I don't step in their world.
Did you visit this property?
No. 2 inspectors of mine did, though. A building inspector and a plumbing inspector.
You have copies of their reports or something?
No, I believe they were there yesterday. So I have not received anything yet this quick.
Okay, all right, that's all I have, thank you.
Anything from the board?
To your knowledge, has there ever been a certificate of occupancy for the accessory structure?
No.
Okay.
Any redirect? Okay. Any additional witnesses for the city? Mr. Medina?
Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Ortiz, would like to testify, please?
Okay. If he wants to, probably easier to have him testify from up there. And if you have any exhibits or anything,
Yes, sir. We do have the assistance of translation today.
okay.
I don't know if the board would like him to swear an oath of some kind.
Both can be, well, we'll go first with Mr. Ortiz.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Mr. Ortiz, would you please stand?
Yep.
Raise your right hand. Do you swear that your testimony today will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Thank you. And you missed it. Translator, your name?
Ricardo Rivera.
Okay. Would you please spell your last name for the record?
It's R-I, last name.
Yes.
R-I-V as in Victor, E-R-A.
Thank you. Mr. Rivera, you're going to be acting as a translator for Mr. Ortiz?
Yes, I will.
And do you swear that you will testify to the best of your ability based on the information that Mr. Ortiz has provided to you? You will translate as accurately as possible?
I do.
Okay.
Would you please state your name, sir, for the record?
Frank Ortiz.
And what is your connection to this property that we've been talking about, please?
Yo soy el dueño de la propiedad,
I am the owner of the property.
el cual la adquirí, o sea, me la vendieron, me la vendió el señor Andazo,
Which I acquired. It was sold to me by Mr. Andazo,
y el cual el propósito era poder empezar mi propio negocio para poder mantenerme a mí y a mi familia.
for which the purpose was for me to start my own business in order to support me and my family.
And what kind of business did you have in mind?
¿Qué tipo de negocio tenía en mente?
Bueno, como siempre, desde Puerto Rico he trabajado en carro,
I always been a mechanic ever since from Puerto Rico.
pues empecé a tratar de moverme, invertir dinero para poder lograr un autoservice y detailing.
I started to move things around so I can invest some money and to start a auto service business.
When you purchased the property from the Randazzos, did you have any conversations or did you know what kind of business had been there previously?
Cuando usted compró la propiedad de los Randazos, si usted tuvo alguna conversación o si sabía de cualquier tipo de negocio que hubiera allí antes.
No, en ningún momento nadie me notificó nada en cuestión de negocios, si se podía, si no se podía, nadie.
No, at any given point, nobody notified me that if there were businesses before or if I could have a business, nothing.
Solamente sí yo vi que anteriormente sí había negocio de carro.
The only thing that I saw was that previously there was car business.
What kind of business was that?
¿Qué tipo de negocio era ese?
Ahí se reparaban transmisiones y se reparaban autos, mecánica liviana.
They will repair transmissions and just basic mechanic.
Inclusive que siempre llegué a ver hasta cajos estacionados en la calle y en la propiedad, piezas de auto.
I always saw cars parked on the street side or inside. I saw auto parts in the place.
Was that the transmission business that we've talked about a little bit?
Que si ese es el negocio de transmisiones que se discutió aquí hace unos minutos.
Es correcto.
That's correct.
And when you were, well, did you ever meet with that business owner or the Randazzos in the course of buying the property?
En el curso de comprar la propiedad, ¿usted se reunió con el dueño de ese negocio o con los randazos?
No, cuando yo adquirí la propiedad, ya el negocio que estaba, ya lo habían cerrado.
When I acquired the property, the business that used to be there, it was already closed.
Porque yo solamente me paré a preguntarle a los que estaban trabajando que si rentaban el garaje.
I only stopped there at one point and asked for some people that were working there if they were renting the place.
Y la persona que estaba en carga de ese día limpiando y dando mantenimiento me dijo que no, que estaba en venta.
The person that was in charge of giving cleaning or maintenance that day, when I spoke to them, he told me that it was for sale.
Y ahí fue que yo me sentí interesado y vi la oportunidad de poder lograr la meta que tenía.
That's when my interest started, and I just saw the opportunity for the property.
And at no point in those conversations did anybody tell you that they had gotten their permit denied for the transmission business. Is that accurate?
Que si es correcto decir que en algún momento de esas conversaciones alguien le dijo a usted que le negaron los permisos para transmisión en algún momento.
No, nunca.
Never.
¿Puedo decir otra cosa?
Can I say something else?
Inclusive, yo adquirí esta propiedad, yo no la adquirí reciente ahora. Yo la adquirí hace ya, va casi para 3 años, 2 años, por ahí más o menos, y nunca nadie de aquí, de la ciudad, en ningún momento nadie me orientó, ni nadie fue a visitarme, ni nada, solamente fue ahora. ¿Cuál es la diferencia de antes y de ahora?
So I did acquire this property not recently. It was probably about 2 or 3 years ago, and nobody ever went over and talked to me. Nobody from this office here. And what's the difference between now and before?
Let's talk about the mobile home a little bit.
Vamos a hablar de la casa móvil.
Do you want to tell the board members a little bit about your use of it and whether people have been living there?
Que si usted quiere comentarle a los miembros de la Junta en cuanto al uso del mobile home o si ha habido gente viviendo ahí.
Sí, no hay problema. Ahí, en esa mobile home nunca ha vivido nadie.
In that mobile home, nobody has ever lived there.
Esa mobile home yo la traje desde Ohio y la estacioné en la primera propiedad antes mencionada.
That mobile home, I brought it from Ohio and I parked it at the first property that was mentioned.
Con el propósito de yo poder primero trabajar en mi propiedad, poner la piedra y o sea, arreglar todo.
With the intent, so I would be able to go ahead and work on my property and clean everything and put everything in order.
Para luego removerla para mi propiedad.
For then I would move it to my property.
And at that point, in your plan, when you were going to move it to your property, was it going to be for people to live in?
Y en ese momento, en el plan que usted tenía de moverla a su propiedad, ese plan era para, el moverla era para que gente viviera ahí.
No.
No.
We've talked a little bit about the idea of storage.
La idea del almacenamiento.
And what do you remember about your conversation with Ms. Francis about storage in the mobile home?
Mis planes en cuanto a almacenamiento.
Pues me acuerdo como si fuera el día de hoy.
I just remember like it was today.
Yo llegué a mi garaje,
I got to my garage,
vi un papel amarillo en la cejadura,
I saw a yellow paper on the doorknob,
pues me estuvo curioso, vi el sign que pegaron chinita en la puerta del mobile home.
and I was curious about it, and I also saw the orange sign that it was posted at the door of the mobile home.
Entonces tomo la acción de coger el papel amarillo, ver la tarjeta
And I took action and took the yellow paper and took the business card
y venir aquí personalmente para ver cuál era la razón de porque me notificaron pues que tenía que comunicarme.
and came here just to see what was the reason, because I was told or informed that I had to make contact, communicate.
El mismo día pasé aquí a la oficina,
Same day I came here,
vine aquí al counter, pregunté por las personas de zoning, como decía el papel,
I just came to the counter and I asked for zoning personnel, just like the paper said.
ahí fue que la señora bajó de la oficina
That's when the lady came downstairs from the office
y empezamos a tener una conversación en cuestión de la mobile home.
and we started having a conversation regarding the mobile home.
La primera pregunta que yo hice ese día fue el por qué me ponen un sticker si alguien mismo del City aquí que trabaja con ella me autorizó a moverla de allá a mi propiedad.
My first question was why this sign was posted if somebody that works here in this same office authorized me to move the mobile home from the previous location to that location.
So let's pause on that. Tell the board members a little bit more about that, please.
Dígale un poquito más acerca de eso a los miembros de la Junta.
Ok, cuando yo decidí mover la mobile home de la propiedad donde estaba a mi propiedad,
When I decided to move the mobile home from the previous property to my property,
es porque me percato que en esa propiedad le pusieron unos signs a la casa y a la mobile home.
it's because I noticed that in that property, they posted some signs at the house and also at the mobile home.
Entonces me percato que en el sign está el nombre de la persona que pegó el sticker.
And then I noticed that on the sign posted was the name of the person that posted the sign.
Yo vengo aquí a la oficina a preguntar por la misma persona.
So I just came here to the office to ask for that same person.
Esa persona baja y me atiende.
This person came downstairs and talked to me.
Cuando yo le explico a él sobre la mobile home, ya él tenía conocimiento
When I explained to him about the mobile home, he already had knowledge
del dueño de la casa donde estaba la propiedad de la mobile home
about the owner of the house where the mobile home was,
y de lo que había pasado porque esa casa fue por causa de fuego.
and what has happened in the past, because that house had some trouble with fire.
Yo personalmente le pido permiso
And I personally asked for permission
porque bien el sticker dice que es ilegal si alguien la mueve o trabaja en la mobile home.
because the sign, the posted sign said that it was illegal to move it or to work in it.
Le explico que yo la quiero mover de esa propiedad a la 2123 Parade Street
And I explained that I wanted to move it from that property to 2123 Parade Street.
y esa misma persona me dice bien claro que sí, que no hay problema.
And that same person clearly told me that it was okay, that there was no problem.
Entonces, cuando él me da el ok, yo decido hacer una inversión que tuve que pagar $784.
So when he gave me the okay, I decided to make an investment that I had to pay,
$784
I had to pay $784
para poder hacer el delivery porque eso es overload y ahí es que decido mover la mobile home a mi propiedad.
to be able to do the delivery, and that was the price because it's an overload, and that's what it cost me to move it from point A to point B.
Y lo hice bien claro porque la persona de aquí de la ciudad me dio el permiso.
And I did it because the person from the city hall here gave me permission.
Si él me hubiese dicho que no, yo no la movía y la dejaba por perdida.
So if he would have said yes to me, he would have said no, I would just left it there and just lose it.
Do you recall handing me a business card from the person that you spoke to?
¿Usted
Sí.
se acuerda haberle dado una tarjeta de negocio de la persona con quien te habló?
No, en ningún momento, porque yo todavía no estaba en plan lo estaba usando para uso privado, la propiedad, en ese momento. Porque parte del plan era de traer la mobile home para yo poder tener almacenamiento, para empezar a trabajar como
So
quería.
I was using it as a private use at the moment. What I wanted to do is bring it to the property in order to use it for storage.
What kind of items were you planning on storing there?
¿Qué tipo de artículo usted está planificando en guardar ahí?
Por ahora, según el plan que tenía, dile para seguir diciendo.
According to the plan that I had,
Solamente empecé a guardar vacuum cleaner, los buffers para pulir autos,
I just started to storage vacuum cleaners, equipment to polish cars,
algunos aditivos que uso como para brillar las gomas, o todo lo que se usa para lavar un carro. So,
and products to clean cars, like products to shine tires and things like that.
porque el propósito era no tener nada en el garaje en el cual nadie se pudiera enredar a golpearse o caerse.
The purpose was not to have anything laying around in the garage so nobody would have an accident or tripped over.
Let's talk about that a little bit. So when you got the property, you mentioned putting some gravel down for parking, you recall that?
De piedra en el parking, ¿se acuerda de eso?
Yo decidí en cuestión de poner piedra en la propiedad, porque sí tengo el conocimiento que es legal si uno tiene, ok, sí.
So I decided to put some gravel in the property because I know that it's legal to do that.
Para poder parquear así sea un tráiler, un auto o algo en la grama.
In order to be able to park the trailer, a car on top of the grass.
Y si esa no es la ley, pues que alguien me contradiga o me corrija.
And if that is not the law, then I need somebody to tell me so I can be corrected.
Did you spend other time cleaning up that property when you first bought it?
Cuando usted compró la propiedad, usted pasó más tiempo limpiándola.
Cuando yo compré esa propiedad, ahí lo que había era un desastre.
When I bought that property, it was a disaster.
Que yo mismo me pregunto si el City mismo visitó o pasó en algún momento por mi propiedad.
I question myself, asking myself if the city went at some point and passed to that property and saw that.
Ellos tienen que saber muy bien que había basura en todos lados,
They should know that there was trash all over the place,
partes de carro como motores, transmisiones afuera en la yarda tirado.
car parts, engines and stuff like that in the yard.
Inclusive limpié todo el lado derecho del garaje donde habían filtros de aceite tirado en el piso. Yo tuve que encargarme de todo el mantenimiento de la propiedad.
I even cleaned next to the building. There was oil cans and things like that. I just had to. I took care of the maintenance of the whole property.
Si ustedes le preguntan a todo el neighborhood,
If you ask people from the neighborhood,
todos ahí están contentos porque esa propiedad nunca se había visto tan limpia y tan arreglada como está en este momento.
everyone is happy because that property have never been so clean like it is now.
Let's start to speak in Spanish. I'm going to show you some photos. If you could identify these, please. I can send to council there. Once you flip through those photos, go ahead and tell us for the record what they show on them.
Que muestra.
Yep, esta es mi propiedad.
This is my property.
Does it show the interior of the mobile home as well as the other structure that's being used for an auto shop?
Que si muestra el interior del mobile home, así como la propiedad, la otra propiedad por dentro de la otra propiedad.
No entiendo qué es.
Que si muestra,
Does it show the interior of both the mobile home and the other structure?
que si muestra el interior de ambos, del mobile home
Oh, sí,
y
sí.
del edificio.
Ujú.
Yes.
Are these fair and accurate depictions of what the property looks like now?
So, estas son unas fotos que son justas y precisas de cómo se ven estas propiedades ahora por dentro.
Actualmente, ahora mismito, así es que se ve mi garaje por dentro.
Currently, that's how my garage looks from the
Y tuve
inside.
que trabajar bien fuerte y esforzarme mucho en lograr, porque nada de eso estaba ahí.
And I had to work a lot and a lot of effort put into this because none of that was there.
I'd like to admit this as Mr. Ortiz's exhibit number 1, if that's okay.
Están haciendo como un anexo número 1.
Yes,
One
sir.
copy, I'm
It's
sorry.
okay.
Tiene una copia nada más.
I'm going to hand you a business card here.
Tarjeta de negocio
Well, I'm going to hand you this exhibit. If you could tell me what it is, please.
para que me diga qué es, por favor.
Esta es la tarjeta que me entregó a mí esta persona
This is the card that this person gave me
el día que vine a preguntar para mover la mobile home de la propiedad de la East Avenue.
the day that I came to ask if I could move the mobile home from the first property.
Y él me la entrega en la mano y bien específicamente dice, si hay alguien que te pregunte o intervenga, que se comunique conmigo.
And he handed it to me, and he specifically told me if somebody intervenes or asks you something, they can talk to me.
I'd like to admit this as our exhibit number 2. I only had the one copy, but I did show opposing counsel there.
También lo están aceptando como anexo número 2. O presentando, no han dicho que lo
Y
aceptan todavía.
dile que aparte de eso fue que yo tomé la decisión de empezar a moverme para poder mover la mobile home.
And after that, that's when I took the decision to start doing all the proceedings to move the mobile home.
Was this letter the first time you heard that you couldn't use the mobile home for storage?
Esa carta es la primera vez que usted escuchó que usted no podía utilizar el mobile home como almacén.
Sí, esa fue la última carta que recibí después que yo vine aquí y hice las preguntas.
Yeah, that's the last letter that I received that after I came here and asked some questions.
Y si en algún momento no hice otra pregunta es porque solamente quedamos, la señora y yo, en que ella me iba a dejar saber si se podía o no se podía.
And if I didn't ask any more questions at any given point, is because at the end of the conversation with the lady, she told me that she was going to let me know about some answers, if I could or could not.
And you're saying the lady, do you mean the previous witness, Amy
Y
Francis?
cuando usted dice la señora, usted está hablando acerca de la persona que estuvo aquí testificando.
Sí, de ella, con todo respeto, que no me recuerdo el nombre.
Yes, with
ahora.
all due respect, I just don't remember the name.
I want to try to give you a chance, Mr. Ortiz, to comment on the fine amounts that were mentioned and the calculation of all that. Is there any comments that you want to make to the members of the board about the potential fine amounts?
Quiero hablar acerca de los comentarios que se hicieron o los cálculos que se hicieron en cuanto a las multas que se hablaron ahorita, que si hay algún comentario que usted quiera hacerle a los miembros de la Junta en cuanto a esos números.
Pues de verdad y con todo respeto, lo que se me puede salir es una lágrima.
Frankly, and with all due respect, I just feel like shedding a tear.
Porque siento que no es justo en cómo se trabajó esto.
I feel that it's not fair how this has been worked.
Porque cómo es posible que unas personas me dicen que sí, me hacen gastar un dinero, para que entonces otras que trabajan en conjunto me digan que no y ahora yo pierda todo.
Because how is it possible that people that work together, one of them tells me, gives me the go-ahead, and I start doing, things, and then people that work on the same office, they say no, and then I'm going to lose everything.
Y creo que es un poquito injusto porque ahora mismo estamos hablando de una mobile home de las dimensiones antes mencionadas que están incorrectas.
And I think it's unfair. We're talking about a mobile home which the dimensions mentioned before, they're not correct, they're not accurate.
Ahora mismo esta mobile home mide 50 de largo por a casi 10 de ancho.
So So this mobile home is 50 long ¿y cuánto de ancho?
10.
And 10 wide.
What were those dimensions?
50 long, longitude, and 10 wide.
Y de verdad ha sido fuerte para mí
And it has been really hard.
desde que yo compré la propiedad. Soy una persona joven que está tratando de echar para adelante.
And it has been really hard since I purchased the property. I am a young person that is trying to make it in life.
El cual en ningún momento, y con todo el respeto, nadie aquí del city
And with all due respect, nobody from the city here
pasó por mi propiedad o tuvo la molestia de orientarme, inclusive el mismo viernes cuando me visitaron.
stopped by my property to give me some orientation or talk to me, even on Friday when they stopped by.
Porque yo creo que sería bien fácil para mí y para muchas personas que quieren hacer esto mismo.
Because I believe that it would be a whole lot easier for me and for many people that want to do similar things.
Si el city tuviera la molestia de orientar, de hacer el trabajo como creo que se debe hacer,
If the city would go ahead and do the work, advise in a way that I think it is supposed to be done.
porque es fácil para ellos ponerme una multa,
Because it's easy for the city to find me,
pero mira lo difícil que fue en explicarme y llevarme en el proceso de qué necesito o qué no necesito.
but look how difficult was the process on explaining to me what I need and what I don't need.
Y de verdad que con todo esto pues me sentí un poquito molesto porque siento que solamente fueron a atacarme en vez de orientarme.
And I really feel I've been upset. I just feel that they came to attack me instead of trying to give me some type of information to help me.
Would, do you think you are going to try to look into a process of getting an exception or variance for the structure so you can operate the auto shop out of it?
Que si usted va a tratar de buscar tratar de conseguir algún tipo de variación o algún proceso para poder operar el
Yo quisiera
taller ahí.
saber qué yo necesito. Si aquí alguien me puede decir qué yo necesito para poder lograrlo, yo estoy en todas mis condiciones para lograrlo.
I would like to know if anybody here could explain to me what it is that I need to do in order for me to be able to achieve what I would like to do.
Porque yo creo que ahora mismo es un poquito injusto que me pongan a mí un sticker de que me quede afuera de mi propiedad
Because I feel right now that it's unfair that somebody comes and posts a keep out sign on my property,
y que el sticker diga una cosa cuando aquí explicaron otra, porque lo acabo de escuchar.
and that the sign says one thing when I was explaining another thing, just like I said before.
El sticker bien claro dice que mi building no es seguro.
The sign clearly states that my building is not safe.
Y aquí en esta foto y en esta se puede ver bien claro, no sé si ellos la tienen, de cómo está mi building por dentro, porque nadie se tomó la molestia de preguntarme, ¿puedo verlo? ¿Podemos chequear?
And this pictures clearly shows the conditions inside my building, how it is right now. Nobody ever took the initiative to ask me if they could come inside and take a look.
Entonces toma la determinación de dejarme afuera de mi propia propiedad.
And then just somebody takes make the decision to just leave me out of my property.
How's business been since you've been operating there? Do you have the ability to pay anything close to $45,000?
¿Cómo ha estado el negocio desde que empezó a operar? ¿Usted tiene la habilidad de pagar algo cerca de $45,000?
Ahora mismo yo estoy en pérdida desde que empecé,
Right now, I am at a loss since I started.
porque yo hice una inversión completa para tratar de tener las cosas lo más perfecto posible.
Because I made a full investment in order to try and have everything complete and ready
Antes de empezar mi negocio como quería hacerlo.
before starting my business as I wanted to do it.
So, ahora mismo yo lo encuentro demasiado de injusto para mí.
So right now, what I see is, I see it as a very unfair thing for me.
That's all the questions I have for now. The other council may have some questions for you.
El otro abogado tiene preguntas más.
Preguntaré que si puedo preguntarle al abogado un momento.
Excuse me.
Can he
Mr.
ask a
Ortiz?
question, can he ask a question to his attorney?
Now, technically, he's on the witness stand, so I would object to that.
Okay, so,
Él va a objetar porque usted no puede, porque ahora mismo como está de testigo no puede hacer preguntas.
Okay, so Mr. Ortiz, my name is Attorney Check. I'm going to, very similarly, I'm going to ask you questions like your attorney did, and I'm going to ask you to answer them so that everyone can hear, or so that the translator can translate it properly.
Y entonces pues la contesta de tal
If I
manera,
ask you a question you don't understand, let me know and I'll try to rephrase it, okay?
entonces le deja saber a él y él hace la pregunta.
dile que es un placer que estoy aquí para contestarle su pregunta.
It's my pleasure and to meet you, and I'm here to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. Now, pictures that were submitted by your attorney to us,
Las fotos que su abogado le dio a usted.
just so I'm clear, the inside pictures are of those, the mobile home, or of those of the garage?
Para estar claro, estas fotos son del interior del mobile home y del garaje.
Sí, tenemos dos del garaje
There's two from the garage,
y las demás son del mobile home por dentro.
and the rest of them are from the interior of the mobile home.
Which two are from the garage? Could you show them
¿Cuáles
to
dos
me?
son del garaje? Te las puedo enseñar.
That's the garage
Las
part.
de garage interior.
Okay. So the rest of the pictures, and I'll be more specific, there's a picture here of what looks like maybe a small desk and a chair.
Hay una foto ahí, esa foto tiene como una
Mr.
silla.
Ortiz, you can look, this is the one I'm
Puede ver
looking
la
at.
foto.
That's from the interior of the mobile home?
Ese es el interior del mobile home.
Sí, así mismo es como desde que lo compré está así.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's just the same condition since I bought it.
Okay. And then the picture with the couches and
Y
the
la
small
foto de
tables?
los sofás.
No, eso fue que cuando al que yo se lo compré, como no tenía dónde botarlo, me los dejó, me dijo, mira, cógelo y llévatelo contigo.
Are these also inside the mobile home?
Eso es dentro del mobile home.
Yeah.
And it looks like, is this also from inside the mobile home?
Que si eso también es de dentro del
Is
mobile
that new flooring?
home. Is that what I'm
Is
sorry?
that new flooring?
Que si eso es piso nuevo.
No, no, eso está así desde que la compré.
No, it's been like that since I bought it.
Okay, so it's just, you cleaned it, and you've cleaned it very, and there's no garbage in there?
Entonces usted la limpió, no hay basura.
Dile que inclusive yo tengo unas fotos en mi teléfono cuando yo la compré y pueden ver que el piso está igual que cuando yo la compré.
Yes, and I also have pictures from when I bought it, and you can see the floor is the same floor.
Okay, yeah, but it looks very clean.
Se
and
ve
it-
muy limpio.
It looks, so are you telling us, though, that despite the pictures you just showed us, you do not want to use it as a living space?
Y entonces se ve muy limpio. Entonces usted nos quiere decir a nosotros que, aparte de cómo se ve, usted está diciéndole aquí a ellos que usted no lo quiere usar como un lugar de vivienda.
Es que yo no necesito usar esto como vivienda, yo tengo mi propia casa.
I don't need to use this as a living quarters. I have my own house.
But is it fair that the pictures you're showing us are chairs, couches, tables, which some could believe would look like a living space?
Counter y silla y que pues, alguien puede pensar de que alguien está viviendo ahí.
Lo puede pensar cualquier persona, pero yo mismo le estoy diciendo que ahí no vive nadie.
Anybody can think that, but I am telling you that nobody lives there.
Y
I understand. And also, in one picture, there's even a ceiling fan, something else that you might have in a living space to cool you down in case your living space is too hot.
Esa foto que le está mostrando tiene un abanico de techo. Eso se utiliza para cuando uno está viviendo ahí, para
Lo
que no
que-
se ponga caliente.
lo que pasa es que la compré así. Si hay que quitarlo, yo lo arranco hoy mismo.
The problem is like I bought it like that. If I have to take it off, I will take it off today.
I'm not asking that, I'm just saying would you think that if, so for someone who doesn't know you or your property, and I walk into that mobile home, that does look like a living space,
Lo que le estoy tratando de preguntar es que si alguien que no lo conoce usted y entra ahí a ese mobile home y ve eso así, va a pensar que es un lugar para vivir.
Bueno, si él determina que ahí puede vivir una persona ahora mismo, pues yo tengo que respetar las decisiones.
and
de
is
cada
it
quien.
also fair to say,
If you determine that somebody can live there, I just have to respect your thoughts.
I understand that. But my other follow-up question, it also looks like it's not a place that's being used for storage of things like, say, tires or spare parts.
Y también, para dar seguimiento a las preguntas, también parece ser que es un lugar que no se está utilizando para guardar llantas o partes de carros.
Es que en ningún momento he podido utilizarlo porque desde el primer momento me negaron la oportunidad de usarlo.
I haven't been able to use it like that because since the beginning I have been denied to use it as such.
Okay, but you understand what it looks like.
Pero usted entiende qué es lo que parece ser. Yes.
So you did talk to Miss Francis back in mid-December, correct?
Usted habló con la señora Francis en diciembre.
Does mid-December sound about correct?
La mitad de diciembre suena correcto.
Sí, al rápido que me pusieron el sticker, el amarillo.
Yes, as soon as I received that yellow sticker, talk to her.
Do you recall if she gave you her business card or information that you could call her after that?
¿Usted se acuerda si ella le dio a usted la tarjeta de ella de negocio o una información para que usted la llamara?
Sí, ella me dio la tarjeta.
She gave me her business card.
Yes, and she indicated that she was going to look into the storage question for you,
Y
correct?
ella le indicó a usted que iba a averiguar en la cuestión, en la pregunta de almacenamiento, la cuestión de almacenamiento, que ella iba a averiguar de eso.
Y ahí se quedó todo desde ese día y pues yo no supe más nada. Me quedé esperando una respuesta.
Yes, and everything stayed at that day, and I just stayed waiting for an answer.
Yeah, so you did not try to call her though yourself, correct?
Y usted no trató de llamarla a usted mismo a ella, ¿correcto?
No la llamé y tampoco ejercí en usarlo como storage respetando el tiempo de plazo para una contestación.
Yeah, I didn't call her, and I also did not use this place as a storage room out of respect of what was going on.
But you did want to use it for storage, right?
Pero sí lo quería usar como un almacenamiento.
Sí,
¿verdad?
ese es el punto, por
Yeah,
eso es
that's
que
the
estamos
point.
aquí.
That's
So
why
it's
we're
fair
here.
to say that it's mid-December, you waited a couple weeks because maybe of Christmas, New Year's Day holiday, right?
So es justo decir que pues, estamos a mitad de diciembre y pues, usted esperó unas cuantas semanas, estaban las navidades, todo ese revolú, correcto.
But now time is getting on. There's 3-4 weeks after you talked to her, now it's the middle of January. You still didn't think, hey, I really want to use my property for storage. You didn't decide not to contact her?
Pero entonces después que pasa la Navidad, como quien dice, ya van 3 semanas, entonces usted no pensó en algún momento, oye, yo quiero utilizar este lugar para guardar cosas, déjame llamar a esta señora, no la llamó.
Lo que pasa es que todavía no necesitaba guardar nada ni nada. Era el plan que tenía. Y pues me quedo esperando por una respuesta, porque como mismo ellos fueron a ponerme esto, esperaba que hubiese sido la misma iniciativa de ir o llamarme y
It's just at that time I didn't have anything to store. That was the plan. I was just like they went and put that yellow paper on my door. I was also waiting for them to come a second time to talk to me.
inclusive perdonando, que yo quería que alguien fuera a mi propiedad para explicarle cómo lo iba a hacer, a dónde lo iba a mover. Nadie en ningún momento fue.
And I even wanted somebody to go and visit my property because I wanted to explain what I was going to do, where I was going to move things.
Well, I mean, you did have, so you wanted someone to come talk to you. So you had Amy Francis's information. You could have said, called her and said, hey, if you can't come to look at my property, is there someone else from the city who could help me out? Did you do that?
Pero usted quería que alguien hablara con usted. Entonces, usted pudo haber cogido y haberla llamado a ella y decirle, mira, necesito que venga a hablar conmigo o que alguien de la ciudad venga a hablar conmigo, si usted hizo eso.
Es que lo que acabo de decirle se lo pregunté a ella y ella me dijo que ya había visto la propiedad, que ella tenía que preguntarle a otra persona para ver si me podían dar un ok.
It's just, like I said, she had told me that she had seen the property and that she had to ask another person, and I was waiting an answer for that.
I understand. So you did get the letter January 31st saying that you could not use it for storage and you had to remove the mobile home.
Usted
Did you-
recibió la carta
Did you
en el-
call her at that point or someone else from the city?
diciendo lo que dice la carta y que en ese punto usted la llamó a ella.
No, en ese momento es que pues empiezo a verificar, a leer la carta, a entender lo que me decían y si ellos pasaron por mi propiedad vieron que yo empecé a hacer cambios y a limpiar y a sacarle el bote, a sacar los carros.
At that point, I read the letter and I read it to understand what the letter said, and at that point, I just started cleaning out the property and taking out the boat, cars.
Y entonces ahí es que tomo la decisión de pensar qué iba a hacer y poder lograr tomar la decisión de apelar para ver a qué punto podíamos llegar.
Then that's when I started thinking and made the decision to do the appeal,
Okay.
Porque es lo que me decía la carta.
because that's what the letter stated.
La carta en ningún momento me dice que pues, llamara para hacer preguntas o para hacer... Ya me están dando una instrucción.
The letter didn't say at any given point, call or to ask questions. The letter is telling me something that I have to do.
Okay, if I'm looking at the letter,
Está mirando la carta.
I'm looking at the very bottom of the letter.
Dice en la parte
Do you see
abajo,
what's at the very bottom of the letter?
lo que está en abajo.
It has an address and phone numbers.
Dice dirección y número de teléfono.
And do you know why those are put there?
Que si usted sabe por qué eso lo incluyen ahí.
Sí, yo lo puedo entender. Pero,
Yes, I can understand.
pero ya en una carta me están dando una orden.
But in
So-
the letter, they're giving me an order.
So, traté de venir a hablar, traté de preguntar, esa fue la respuesta, pues lo lógico es yo, si no estoy de acuerdo, tratar de...
So I try to come, I try to talk to somebody, I didn't get a response, so the logic thing for me was to appeal.
Okay, I understand that. I'll move on from
Que
that.
él entiende eso.
Now, this is part of City's Exhibit 5, I believe.
Eso es del anexo.
This picture was taken on Monday,
Esa foto se tomó el
so
lunes,
yesterday.
ayer.
Does that look familiar to you?
Que es familiar para usted.
The orange sticker? So you do recognize that?
Que usted reconoce la papeles naranjado. Yes.
Now, this picture also, I believe, part of City's Exhibit 5 is
Todo eso
the
también es del anexo
the
número 5.
picture taken from this morning. Do you see the orange sticker on the door?
Que si usted ve el sticker naranjado en la puerta.
No lo veo.
No, I don't see it.
Y si me da la oportunidad, pues explico.
Did you put the sign over top of the sticker?
Que si usted puso eso encima del sticker naranjado.
Dile que, sí, que si puede explicarle por qué el motivo.
Yes, and if I may explain why I did it.
Why?
Cuando yo veo ese sticker en mi puerta,
When I saw the sign posted in my door,
pues el inglés no lo leo muy bien.
I can't read English. that
Solamente sí que keep out, es lógico que yo sé que están sacando a alguien para afuera.
good. When it says keep out, it's obvious that it's telling for somebody to stay out.
Entonces, dentro de ese garaje, yo tengo mis pertenencias personales,
Inside that garage, there's personal property
dinero que
money.
tenía.
that I had.
Entonces, pues, discúlpeme si lo hice mal ni me tomé un atrevimiento, pero preferí taparlo para poder entrar y que no me metan un cargo por poder entrar a mi propiedad, buscar mis cosas personales, y pues lo hice.
And I apologize if I did wrong, but I decided to do that because I wanted to go in and get my personal property, and I did.
I have a question. On that blue sticker, is there a name and contact information, such as a phone number, for someone who put that there?
Que si en ese ticket hay un número, un nombre y un número de contacto para contactar a alguien.
Pues lo que pude leer así lo que vi fue una fecha, que la cual no entiendo todavía.
What I could read was a date that I couldn't understand it. I still don't understand what day it was.
Pero
But wasn't there contact information on there?
Había información.
Phone number?
Número
No,
telefónico.
no es que no llegué ni a leer el papel completo, nada más con el keep out, eso me dio a mí, me quedé en freight, ¿cómo se dice eso?
I didn't even read the whole sign. When I saw keep out, I just kind of froze.
Porque ya había pasado la mala experiencia allá con la mobile home también.
I already had gone through a similar experience, bad experience with the mobile home.
So it's fair to say that when you get contact information from a sign being posted on any type of property or a letter in the mail, you just don't call anyone. Is that a fair
So, es
statement?
justo decir que cuando usted recibe algún tipo de documento que se lo postean así, usted no llama a las personas que tiene que llamar.
Es que de verdad en el momento, eso fue ayer, por la tarde fue que yo vine a ver ese de esto, y estaba esperando venir hoy para que me aclararan eso mismo, porque ni yo sabía por qué estaban poniendo eso ahí.
Reality is that was yesterday, and that I saw that, and I knew that I was going to come here today, and I didn't even know and understand why they put that there.
Yo vi ese papel aproximadamente a las 5 de la tarde.
I saw it posted approximately 5 p.m.
y tengo evidencia en video porque mis cámaras están funcionando 24/7.
and I have video evidence of that.
¿A quién yo iba a llamar en ese momento?
Who was I going to call at that moment?
Okay. Now, you say that you talked to someone and you're saying that person was named Scott. Excuse me,
Heizenreiter.
Que usted
Scott.
habló con alguien que se llama Scott Heisenreiter.
You said you got that business card from Scott Heisenreiter. When did you get that business card?
Que usted dice que usted consiguió
Eso
usted
fue-
recibió esa cosa, que esta tarjeta, que cuándo fue?
Aproximadamente para septiembre, a finales de septiembre.
Around the end of September
So September of last year?
del año pasado.
Ujú.
Yes.
Are you 100% certain that you talked to Scott Heisenreiter in September of last year?
Que si usted está completamente seguro que usted habló con este señor que se llama Scott Heisenreiter a final de septiembre.
Ujú, por eso tengo la tarjeta.
Yes, that's why I have the card.
And are you saying that Mr. Heisenreiter is the one who verbally told you that you could move the mobile home to that property?
Y usted está diciendo que el señor Heisenreiter le dijo a usted verbalmente que usted podía mover el mobile home a esa propiedad.
Eso pasó ahí mismo en el lobby.
That happened, yes, that happened right there at the lobby.
Okay. Also in the lobby. You talked to Mr. Heisenreiter in the lobby?
Que habló con el señor Heisenreiter en el lobby. Yes.
Okay. And when did you buy the business or the property from the Randazzos?
Usted compró la propiedad de los Randazzos.
No tengo la fecha exacta, eso está en el DIP, pero se la podemos hacer llegar.
I don't have the exact date now. I mean, I can provide it.
No, was it in 2021?
Fue en el 2021,
Sí, fue por ahí, sí, por verano.
around summer.
Okay, approximately. And when you bought it, was there an actual auto repair shop actually running? Was there a business actually in the garage?
Cuando usted lo compró, que si había un negocio de auto que estaba operando.
No, ya no estaba operando, solamente ellos estaban limpiando, pero estaba el sign, había herramientas dentro todavía.
It was in operation. It was already closed, but there were people there cleaning, but they still had the sign posted.
Okay, so you're saying there was signage and there may have been a janitor or someone who was cleaning up the property or maintaining it?
So, había gente que estaba limpiando allí y que la estaba manteniendo. Y había también un letrero allí que decía,
Ujú, había unas personas dando mantenimiento en cuestión de limpieza y grama.
yes, there were people that
Estaban tratando
were
de-
giving maintenance.
Estaban tratando de bajarla porque estaba casi a un pie de alto.
They were cleaning the yard. It was high, like a foot high.
Y sacando unas cosas que habían dejado dentro de...
But was there anyone who was actually like repairing cars?
Que si alguien estaba
Did you see
reparando carros.
tools there that were used to repair cars? Or
No, en
tires?
ese momento no.
Not at that moment.
Pero anteriormente, a tiempo antes, yo sí conducía por esas calles y sí llegué a ver que trabajaban ahí.
But prior to that, time passed. I did drove through the property and I
Yo lo
saw.
que
people
pensé
there.
pues que puede cejar, como cualquiera puede cejar un negocio.
What I thought was that they just shut down the business just like anybody can do it.
Did you think to ask questions of the Randazzos on why that business was closed or why they were no longer running an auto shop out of there?
Que si usted pensó en hacerle preguntas a los randazos de por qué habían cerrado el negocio.
Es que en el momento no vi pertinente, como no es mi asunto en el momento. Yo solamente estoy interesado en la propiedad.
At the moment, I didn't see it as necessary. I'm just interested in the property.
Okay, so did you do any other research on the property because you said you wanted to use this property for auto repair, correct?
Si usted hizo alguna otra investigación en la propiedad, que si usted dijo que usted quería utilizar esta propiedad para arreglar autos.
No como reparación, es para servicio, que son dos cosas.
Not repair, service, which are two different things.
Pero como sí vi que había un negocio vigente, que hasta en Google lo vi, pues ya está estipulado para ese tipo de negocio, era el pensar.
So the thought was in my mind that I saw that it was a business. I even saw it on Google that it was a business. So I thought that it was a place for business.
So other than doing a Google search, did you do any other research to see what you would need to do to have a legal business in that garage?
So más allá de hacer un search de Google, buscar en Google si usted hizo alguna otra gestión para ver si usted podía tener un negocio legalmente allí en ese garaje.
No, en el momento no hice ningún. Solamente lo que hice fue pues verificar tasas, verificar si tenía deuda, verificar si lo común que se hace cuando uno compra una propiedad.
No, I only checked on taxes. I checked to see if there were any debts pending, stuff like that, the usual stuff.
Okay. But also, you do seem to know the difference between an auto repair and auto detailing. Those are two specific types of businesses.
Y entonces usted parece conocer la diferencia en reparación de auto y pues detailing de auto. Que eso es diferente, son dos
Ok.
negocios diferentes.
Lo que pasa es que quienes me enseñaron a mí que lo veían diferente era aquí, cuando yo hice una pregunta a alguien. Dile. Dile, o sigo.
Dime otra vez.
Yo hice una pregunta a alguien aquí en cuestión de auto repair y para servicio.
So I asked somebody at some point in terms of auto repair and auto detailing,
Porque pues me decían que auto repair es cuando tú pues los vas a desmontar, los vas a hacer like, modificaciones, ¿va? Y servicio es cuando tú los limpias, cuando le das brillo, cuando los lavas.
because I was told that auto repair, when you disassemble engines and you repair things like that, and I was also explained that detailing would be when you're going to clean the cars and it's that type of service.
Okay, so is it fair to say you have a lot of different people telling you things, presumably because you are asking them questions, correct?
So es justo decir que usted conoce cosas que la gente dice, que usted está haciendo preguntas a ellos.
Sí, porque quería orientarme un poco en cuestión de cómo poder y empezar a hacer un negocio,
Yes.
un pequeño negocio.
Yes, I just wanted to learn a little bit in terms of some information so I can go ahead and start a small business.
And back to when you said you talked to Scott Heisenreiter, correct?
Usted dice que usted habló con Scott Heisenreiter, que es incorrecto.
Out here in front of first floor City Hall?
Aquí en el primer piso del City Hall,
Sí, en el lobby.
en the lobby.
And he was the one who said you can move the mobile home to that property.
Y ese fue el que le dijo a usted que podía mover el mobile home a esa propiedad.
Exacto, porque si no yo no lo hubiese hecho.
Exactly, because if not, I wouldn't have done it.
And was that from the other property? What was the other property it was located
Eso fue de
on?
la otra propiedad, que ¿cuál fue la otra propiedad?
En la East Avenue.
East Avenue.
El número está por aquí, lo
The
tenemos
number
en
is
un
over
papel.
here. I have it on the paper,
Okay, but on East Avenue.
pero por East Avenue.
Did you, now, obviously, when Amy Francis did her final evaluation, she sent you something in writing.
Cuando,
Did Mr. Heisenreiter send you anything in writing?
cuando la muchacha hizo la evaluación final, me envió algo por escrito. Entonces, la pregunta es si el señor Scott te envió algo por escrito.
No, ya después de eso, yo moví esta mobile home para octubre y yo recibo eso en enero.
No, I moved this mobile home back in October and I received that on January.
Okay, but what I'm asking, did Mr. Heisenreiter, the one you said gave you verbal permission, and right here, send you anything in writing that you can show us that said that you can move it to that new location?
Sí, pero la pregunta que estoy haciendo es que si el señor Scott, al cual le dijo usted verbalmente, le da permiso que si él envió algo por escrito que usted nos pueda mostrar aquí hoy, que eso fue por escrito, que se dio ese permiso.
No me envió nada, solamente tuvimos la conversación porque pues yo hice la pregunta que si podía o no podía.
No, he didn't send me anything. We just had the conversation and to see if I could or could not.
Okay. I don't have any other questions for
Que no tiene más preguntas
Mr. Ortiz.
para el señor Ortiz.
Mr. Ortiz, when you purchased the property, did you use an attorney?
Cuando usted compró la propiedad, ¿usted utilizó un abogado?
Sí.
Yes.
And your attorney did not advise you as to zoning or uses or anything of that
Y el
nature?
abogado suyo no le dijo nada, no le aconsejó o le dio información en cuanto a zonificación o este tipo de información.
No, en ningún momento.
Okay.
Not any given.
Inclusive que el abogado, quien me lo recomendó fue el mismo que me vendió la propiedad.
The attorney was recommended by this guy that sold me the property.
Okay.
Y
Did you
te-
tell the attorney that you wanted to do an auto business there?
¿Usted le dijo al abogado que usted quería poner un negocio de autos allí?
Antes, sinceramente yo no me acuerdo porque esto fue tan rápido que se me dio que
Frankly, I can't recall. Everything happened so fast that
Okay.
Is it the same lawyer you're using today?
¿Es el mismo abogado que está utilizando hoy?
No.
And in terms of your business, do you have a legal entity for that business? Like LLC or a sole proprietorship?
En cuanto al negocio suyo, ¿usted tiene una entidad legal para ese negocio? Por ejemplo, un LLC o cualquier tipo de otra entidad legal que
Pues
pueda utilizar.
ahora mismo tengo el Tax ID number, tengo
I have the tax ID number,
el IM, el que se usa con el IRS, que viene siendo mi mismo seguro social.
the number that is used with the IRS, which comes to be my own social security number.
Y quien me trabajó en los papeles fue Liberty Tax en la 26. Ellos fueron los que me orientaron y me hicieron el papel.
So Liberty Tax on 26th Street were the ones that worked on my on the paperwork.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, gracias.
I have nothing further, and we don't have any other evidence to present from our
Que
side.
no tiene más nada ni más evidencia para presentar.
Three rebuttal witnesses.
Okay.
They would be quick. But they would, we-
Will they be cumulative?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
I would say there's been a lot of discussion over whether there was follow-up and conversation, but I feel like that may be getting a little bit off point.
No, just be exactly comprehensive.
Yeah, I know, your question was a little off point too.
Él
Well-
siente que hay mucha conversación en cuanto a-
Gentlemen, the time to say that it was off point is when he's asking the questions and you have an opportunity to
Tú
make
puedes
objections.
preguntarle.
Okay? So you have 3 rebuttal witnesses. Why don't you put the first one on, and then we'll see if the other ones are
Y
necessary.
vamos a ver si los otros
Okay.
dos son necesarios.
Tú puedes preguntarle a ellos.
Yep.
So I'm going to call Michael Lavery.
Will you please state your name
Michael Lavery,
and spell the last name, please?
Lavery.
Thank you. Do you swear that your testimony today will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
Any chance we could take just a 1 minute recess so we can make sure his kid gets picked up from school? Just make a quick phone call on that.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, we'll do 5 minutes. People need to get up and stretch and.
Michael Lavery, Lavery,
And where do you work?
City Hall and the Code Enforcement Office.
And how long have you been doing that?
I've been in code enforcement for 6 years, at City Hall for 25 years.
Okay. Now, you know that we're here about a mobile home located at 2123 Pride Street, correct?
Correct.
Do you know, have you had any, as part of your job duties, had any involvement or knowledge of that particular mobile home?
So I deal with blighted properties and demolition, and this, I believe this is the same mobile home that was located at 1003 East 23rd Street, which was a blighted property that has since been condemned.
Okay, and what happened, when was that, rephrase, I just want to get right to the mobile home. When was the last time the mobile home was on that property?
So it was brought to my attention May 12th of 2022. So we went out there and stickered keep out and stop work orders in case it was being used as a job trailer for that property because the property had no building permits on file.
And did you have any conversations with anybody about someone taking that and moving it?
Yes, so there were several people that came in because that property is on a high-profile corner. We get a lot of calls from neighbors and questions. People come in and call about that trailer constantly. And someone did come in shortly after that, later that summer, I want to say June, July, when there was we found out that that property is being condemned, which means it could be taken through eminent domain by the redevelopment authority. And I was asked if that trailer could be moved from there. And I said, yes, it could, because at that time, it was explained to me that they were renting space to store the trailer there from a Luis Montez, who previously owned the property. And I suggested that they do remove it, because if it's on that property, when the property is condemned and taken, it's going to be demolished along with the property.
Do you know if the person you talked to was Mr. Ortiz?
I honestly don't remember. I didn't get a name. There were 3 or 4 people that came in and asked about that. It may have been. It may have been.
In the conversations, though, that you would have had with any of these individuals, was it essentially the issue was whether they could take it and move it?
So I was asked if they could take it and move it, and I said yes, but I suggested that they follow PennDOT regulations and contact DOT to make sure it's moved properly. A destination for the trailer was never discussed.
Okay, so no one actually specifically asked you, or you didn't advise anything about moving it to a new location, like whether that was proper or legal?
I was asked if they could move it off of the property, and I said yes if it's their trailer.
Okay. And was the address of 2123 Parade Street ever mentioned?
No, I never knew anything about that property.
And/or, just because it's been mentioned in testimony, was the address of 410 East 22nd Street ever mentioned to you?
No.
Okay. I don't have any further questions for Mr. Lavery.
Okay. Mr. Medina?
Yes, thank you. I think just a couple of questions. Mr. Laver, you mentioned that you work with blighted properties in the city, correct?
Correct.
And then you sort of referenced the old Montez property that was about to be condemned, correct?
Correct.
Did your office make any determination on blight with regard to 2123 Parade Street or 410 East 22nd?
No, I've never been to that property for work.
Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay.
No redirect.
Okay. Anything from the board?
Mr. Heisenreiter. We're going to call Scott Heisenreiter.
Mr. Heisenreiter, if you please raise your right hand. State your full name, please.
Scott Heisenreiter.
Mr. Heisenreiter, do you swear that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you. You want to come up here to the microphone?
Okay, Mr. Heisenreiter, could you state your name for the record?
Scott Heisenreiter,
And who is your employer?
City of Erie.
And what is your title?
City of Erie Building Inspector.
And so, as your title suggests, your job duties would be centered around inspecting buildings?
Yes.
Would you have anything to do with code enforcement?
Well, code enforcement will notify me if there's building violations.
Okay, and my question specifically relates to Mr. Ortiz, correct? You know why we're here for that, right?
Yes.
When was the first time you met Mr. Ortiz?
I believe it was last Friday.
And so when you say last Friday, are you talking about Good Friday, April 7th?
Or Thursday, sorry, excuse me, Thursday.
So April 6th
Yes,
of 2023.
yes.
And could you tell us what were the circumstances that you met him? Like where, when, what was the purpose?
Oh, I was sent there to Parade Street to post the property, I was with the plumbing inspector to see if there was actual plumbing facilities in that structure,
In the structure you're referencing, which one? Because there's a mobile home and there's also a garage.
the garage.
So were not there to inspect the mobile home at all?
Correct.
Do you recall having a conversation with Mr. Ortiz last fall, maybe in September of 2022?
I do not, because I was off most of September, October. My daughter was terminally ill.
Okay, so I'm sorry for your situation. But so essentially, you were not working, you were off on
Correct.
job
My
duties.
card is out there at the desk. You can go pick up one now, but I was not working.
So it's possible that Mr. Ortiz got your card via maybe the person who out in the lobby area.
It's possible I was not working.
Okay, and I'm not going to say anything else. Thank you. I don't have any other questions for Mr. Heisenberg.
Yes, sir, just maybe a question or two. When your attention was drawn to 410 East 22nd Street last week, you said that was as a result of communication from who? Code enforcement?
Yes, from zoning office and my supervisor and the plumbing inspector.
And what are they telling you? There's an issue with that property? Or
Well,
go
we
out
were-
and see it?
We were to go there and determine if there was facilities in the garage.
What was the initial cause for concern? How did that come to the office's attention, do you know?
Well, they're inhabiting a space without plumbing facilities.
And in the course of your investigation here in the scope of your duties through your office, who did you find had inspected the property and found that there was no plumbing facilities?
Well, I was there with the plumbing inspector and the electrical inspector, and the plumbing inspector entered the garage with Mr. Ortiz.
Okay, that was Thursday?
I believe it was Thursday.
But then prior to that, your office had gotten a call that there was potentially no plumbing, is that right? Which is why you took the plumbing inspector?
Yes, it was, porta potty was placed outside.
Who told you that?
It was a complaint to our office.
From okay.
I'm not sure where it came from.
I'm wanting to use the word civilian, but just a resident in the neighborhood?
I believe so.
Okay. You know if the office keeps track of any of these?
Well, you can call in a complaint, and then we're sent to different addresses to investigate.
Is that documented anywhere, do you know?
I'm not sure of that.
When you went out to look at the property on Thursday, were you aware that this proceeding was pending?
No.
How many individuals went out?
Myself, the electrical inspector, and the plumbing inspector.
And did they complete their jobs looking at the property?
Well, myself and the electrical inspector did not enter. Plumbing inspector knocked on the door, Mr. Ortiz answered, and they went in together.
That was the plumbing inspector?
Yes,
Okay. And you placed the keep out sign on the door, right?
correct.
And at that point, placing the keep out sign is based on lack of plumbing, lack of electricity, or both?
Just the plumbing.
Okay.
It's uninhabitable without facilities.
And that was discussed with my client, Mr. Ortiz, right?
Pardon me?
The plumbing issue or lack of plumbing was discussed with my client, Mr. Ortiz, correct?
The plumbing inspector did discuss that.
In English, I imagine.
Yes.
And you were standing there, so you would have heard this. What detail did they go into as far as what my client might have had to do to get it up to code?
I was outside the whole time. They were inside discussing, and certainly asked the plumbing inspector, but
Is he going to testify? Is the plumbing inspector going to testify?
Right. Might be redundant. My purposes might be redundant.
I hear you. So as of now, we don't know whether the electricity is appropriate or not, right?
correct. There
I'm
was,
going to object because this goes past the scope of my directive.
Thank you. I'll sustain that.
Thanks.
That's all I have, thank you.
Nothing from the board.
No rate matters.
Thank you.
And then I had three, but I think with the testimony I have, I'm not going to call the third rebuttal witness.
Mr. Medina, any additional witnesses in response to the two that we just heard from?
I guess I will say, because my client mentioned it to me a moment ago, I kind of probably appropriate to make something like a proffer, but my client took some photos and wanted to articulate, I guess, his view and opinion on similar businesses that are in the neighborhood and his confusion about the permits and the process. So he took these photos. When he sat down, he said, I want to show them my photos, and I didn't think about going through that. So I'll proffer that that's what he wants to get into.
I don't think that that's appropriate at this point in time. It's not rebuttal testimony.
Yeah.
You had your opportunity to do that in your case in chief.
And I would object for the same
Yeah,
reasons.
I'm not sure it's really, yeah. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
That's all we have.
Yeah. And I mean, there's been testimony that there are other properties that are being looked at this point in time. So I don't know that he necessarily gains anything from that. Yeah, so if there's, do either one of you want to do a very brief closing? There's no need to. I said there's no need to, but you may.
I can do probably 3-sentence closing if you'd like.
Sure.
I believe that from everything you've heard and seen, that Mr. Ortiz has had the opportunity to find out what he needs to do to have a legal business on the property. He does seem, in snippets, to provide us information that he has knowledge. He has asked questions in the past. However, he seems to also have a habit of ignoring contact information, so to speak, and following up. And also, when he doesn't seem to like something, he just takes a no public toilets or no public restroom sign and covers the sign up, because that's what he wants to do. So I would say, for our purposes, he's supposed to remove the mobile home. He hasn't. He had plenty of opportunities. I find it very compelling that he has an interpreter here now. He could have asked anybody on the staff to have an interpreter present if he needed one. He has legal counsel. I think this could have been probably worked out before even the appeal was filed. So I would ask you to enforce the restrictions. Thank you.
Counsel?
Yes, thank you. It's tough to put my client in a sort of catch-22 position where he shows all these affirmative steps that he takes to repair the property, purchase the property, get it ready for business, testifies to all his cleanup, he follows up, he comes and visits and speaks with Ms. Francis. When the verbal conversations aren't enough, he gets asked, well, why didn't you get it in writing? Well, so he's doing everything he can to communicate with these people, with all the relevant offices. There's no evidence of him being combative or disrespectful to any of the employees. There's obviously a little bit of a language barrier, but that's not our main point here. The point is that he has been making all these efforts, and we can see that through concrete measures, no pun intended, laying the gravel, cleaning the property, and so forth. Clear recollection, I would ask the members of the board to find his testimony credible, because it does appear that he recalls specific details, who he spoke to, these particular steps. He wasn't reading off of notes or anything. So to the extent that the members of the board might be considering an intent to violate or a willful refusal to follow the steps or follow up, I would just ask the board to find that that's not the case. I think that it's very credible and seems consistent with the evidence to accept the fact that the question about using the mobile home for storage was left at a pending question status with code enforcement, and then my client first heard back on January 31st. There was even some discussion about, and I think it was referenced again here in argument, that my client, instead of seeking counsel and talking to an attorney and getting money together for all that and everything else, should have used his 30 days to try to get the clarification. But I'm going to ask that the members of the board not hold that against my client. To use the time that he's spending seeking counsel while the 30 days are running, I think is just a little unfair. We addressed it when we did. There's a filing fee. There are all these logistical things that have to happen, and so to hold the appeal in itself against my client, to hold the fact that I didn't file until the 30th day against my client is I don't think it's really relevant in particular to go to the question of whether a violation of the code exists here. Now, when we get to that particular question, the central question, I think that it's important to look at the notice of the violation that's on the January 31st correspondence, and also note that this is the first time my client is being told that the trailer may not be used as a storage shed trailer. There's references here to, as the evidence showed, people residing in the mobile home, of which there's no evidence in the record, and I think only evidence to the contrary. There's the reference here to 3 feet from the property line. That doesn't appear to be the issue. I think it's undisputed that the only issue here, the only point of violation, is not using it as a storage shed or trailer. And it can be easy, I think, it can be tempting to sort of just look at that phrase, storage shed trailer, and think of it as some umbrella term that everybody should understand. But I submit to the members of the board, it is a little technical. We talk about what items to store, how much, is it connected to a facility that's connected, that's open to the public? Is it one, do all storage units, do all sheds have to have a bathroom? It's obviously very confusing and technical, and we're presented with a situation here where Mr. Ortiz, I submit to the members of the board, is taking all these steps to try to do things right, short of, I guess, he didn't even know that he was, that he couldn't use the business as an auto shop. So he started behind the 8 ball, and again, submit that he's done as much as he possibly could to try to get everything. Now, okay, he gets told on January 31st that the mobile home can't be used as storage. He comes and talks to council, and we develop this plan to appeal this based on the confusing nature of what he was told, what he wasn't told, and we appreciate the members of the board setting aside this huge amount of time. We understand what an indulgence it is, and we appreciate it. But my client did want to be heard to articulate his good faith, to articulate his best efforts, to articulate the way that he's trying to add to this community, stay out of the criminal justice system, possibly employ people down the road, buying property, cleaning up property, all these things that he's trying to do. And so that's why we wanted the hearing. And I make that point to try to persuade the board that in the event they find that the mobile home is in violation of this ordinance of the code, that the fine would be nominal, minimal. Here we have a sort of a sole proprietor who, as I've reiterated a couple of times, is trying to do everything he can to get ahead. And, quick math, $500 a day, $45,000, 90 days from, January 31st, when obviously the timing of the hearing is not within our control. And he's not going to move moving the trailer, of course, would be another expense while we're waiting for the hearing. So he didn't undergo that. Maybe I don't think I told him not to move it, but I'm sure in preparing for this hearing, we thought, well, don't change anything because we have to get a determination. This is very confusing. So when it comes to the fine amounts, we're hoping that the court would maybe, if it's within the board's power, maybe not fine him, give him an opportunity to rectify the situation. I think that he's shown he's cooperative and willing to take all the necessary steps and make all the necessary investments to fix the situation. And so we would ask that the court not impose a fine amount to the extent that that's possible. In the event that the court finds there is a violation, first off, we would ask that the court not find there is a violation. We believe that the allegation is particularly vague. And again, this was the first notice that my client had that the shed or that the mobile home could not be used as storage. We did submit some photos into evidence. I would submit, it sounds like that's not the kind of storage that this rule contemplates, just keeping a ceiling fan or a couch there that he bought the mobile home with. So it's not being used for storage, as he said, with all due respect. He repeated that phrase, which I think is important. He didn't store stuff there because this matter was pending. So again, we thank the board for all its time, and those are our requests today. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, the record on the hearing is closed, and the board will take a brief recess for an executive session for deliberations.
All right, we're going to call the meeting back to order. Mr. Ortiz, we are going to uphold the violation relative to the mobile home. We're going to give you 30 days to have it removed. And relative to the fine, we're going to levy a $500 fine. Any questions about that?
Is there a schedule for paying the fine?
Jake, if you could weigh in on what typically is done relative to the fine, or what our options would be there. I would assume that he could pay it in installments, or he could pay it up front. Is that typically what is done?
If I'm not mistaken, now that the violation's been upheld, and that order to correct has been essentially levied by the board, giving him 30 days, I don't believe there would be a fine if he's in compliance. The only way that we can do any kind of fine would have to come from the district judge based on a civil complaint from the city.
So he's got 30 days, and if that's fine.
If he gets it done within 30
30
days,
days.
there essentially is no fine.
Okay.
Correct, yeah, we would not file a civil complaint at that point.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Relative to the accessory structure, even though that is not before us today, we will caution you to have many conversations with the folks that are appropriate relative to what you want to do there, so that there is no question about having a legal business and a legal use for that property.
Do we need a vote, or?
Yes.
I make a motion, we call for a vote.
Second? All right.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we have a call for the vote. Mr. Johnson, how do you vote?
I vote.
Yeah.
We already voted, didn't we?
Well, you vote to uphold the appeal,
Yeah,
or actually to deny the appeal.
that's how I vote.
Right,
Deny.
that's correct. Mr. Sebald? Ms. Gudgeon?
I also vote to deny the appeal.
Okay, the vote is 3-0 to deny the appeal.
If there is nothing further, I will accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All right, we are all in favor. Thank you.